expert for you. We've travelled to your racetracks to give you the inside knowledge. So what does Kart Class offer? We've got drone footage that captures the racing lines, visual markers for your braking points, acceleration zones, and the best overtake opportunities on your racetrack. Pedal cam to show you where to brake and when to accelerate, and 360-degree footage to make sure you don't miss any parts on the racetrack. We've covered 13 racetracks in the United States, and Australia, you're up next. So visit kartclass.com to get your track information.
Brandon, why are
stop.
for just over $200?
I'm tired of all this branding business, okay? Branding this, branding that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200? We know, okay? Take a walk with me. At Shop AKR, they have everything you need to start racing at a very cheap and affordable price. They have MXC rims, they got chains, electrical stands, tilt seats. They got MXCs. And if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental US over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
All the way up to the finish line. Who is it going to be? And it's Sean Perez who wins in Crescent.
Ty Fisher wins $1,000 in KA100 Junior.
Alex Stanfield played it perfectly here. Told him to wait. Stanfield wins the Duffy in 2024 for TV Kart.
Amarillo Kart Complex is now the official distributor for TV Kart in the continental U.S. Become a dealer today.
Kyle, what are you doing?
It's got my new Greyhound seat.
You don't even have a cart.
Doesn't matter. I have a Greyhound.
Who the f is Kyle Cuthbertson? Doesn't even have a go-kart.
Doesn't matter.
Cuthbertson through on Turney. Turney in the dirt.
Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR, with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today. DPK Americas is bridging the gap between the U.S. and the 2-time world champion DPK Alonso Kart factory team in Europe.
In partnership with Team Binnick, they offer drivers a complete career path from the Americas to Europe that allows them to continue their driver development on both sides of the world, all underneath the DPK umbrella.
For more information, contact DPK Americas at max@drivensm.com to take the next step in your driver development journey today.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here. For more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
K1 Circuit, the world's...
Welcome to the World Center of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway for the first round of the United States Pro Kart Series. As always, my name is Caleb Bieska. Alongside me here in the booth this weekend, the one and only Alexander Searle. As it's already been, I feel like it seems like a long start to the weekend, right? Practice on Thursday, a lot of drivers missed out. School's still kind of very well underway here this year, Alex. And then moving forward, today practice for a lot of these drivers as well. And for those who haven't been here, who haven't done the famous Daytona Kart Week that takes place here every single December to end the year, welcome to Daytona. Welcome to, I think, one of the most unique racetracks on the karting national circuit this year.
Yeah, it's always a good time to come to Daytona, but I'm excited because, like you mentioned, Kart Week, end of the year, always in December. A lot of drivers take that weekend off, as we see a big moment there for the 967 off the racetrack. But I gotta say, always gonna be at the racetrack, Caleb. Always gonna be back at Daytona. We never really get a chance to come here during the end of the year. Really cool to see USPKS make the trek over to Daytona. A lot of drivers, like you mentioned, have been here during Kart Week. I'd say at least half the drivers that I've spoken to this morning have not been here before. And that is a big deal, right? And a lot of drivers took yesterday's practice as kind of a sightseeing sort of thing, really get their bearings together. Some drivers that I know of have never been here before and didn't do practice yesterday. So today is pretty much throwing it all out there and, seeing what sticks. So drivers like Benjamin Fernandez, I know, are one of them where they haven't been here before, had to go to school, right? A lot of drivers still go to school, believe it or not. And so, arrived here this morning and put on new tires and just said, let's go for it. So really excited to be here. Recently, newly paved as of Kart Week this past year. I know a lot of drivers, including myself, who have driven it before the pave. I've not driven it since the repave. It was bumpier, a little bit less grip. Now we have a lot more grip. From what I've been told, it's a lot smoother than what it used to be. But there is some Rhino liner that we'll get into as warm-ups get underway, happy hours get underway, and then qualifying later on, which I think will throw a wrench in some things. I know a lot of drivers that maybe the taller ones who struggle to already free up the go-kart will struggle a little bit more. This kind of reminds me of what we saw last year when we went to Dowsman, Wisconsin. So I'm excited.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of very characteristic racetracks on the schedule this year, especially to start this one off, right? Daytona, you've actually driven this racetrack, Alex, before the repave. So for a lot of drivers, even though they have been there, if you didn't do the Kart Week to start off the year, you're definitely in for something new, I feel like, as well here this year, because this track is just so different. And for the first time, I feel like in a long time, you have 200 karts that are going to hit the racetrack and really start to lay some rubber down. This MG Red is definitely going to start to put the rubber down this weekend, and I really think it's going to change everything that everybody's known about this racetrack as well. Is going to be very new for everybody who hasn't been here or who's definitely new here, right? When you talk about the Rhino liner patches, there's a lot of the a lot of the corners around here, like turn 6 and 7, the double rights. That's one of the places where we heard from Ryan Roffa talk that he was up on 2 wheels yesterday in the Thursday practice, and that's almost a flat-out corner, going full throttle through there, and trying to stay on the grip under the groove as well. We talked to a lot of drivers, and they said the same thing, and I feel like as well, this track being one of the most narrow racetracks I think we've been to in quite some time, you know, we're going to see a lot of drivers go off. That's really what we're going to see, and everything offline is definitely not where you want to find yourself. There's a lot of marbles, a lot of dirt off the racetrack, especially on the exit of the last turn, Alex, we're talking about. You know, if you find yourself off the racetrack here, it's definitely one of the places where you're going to pick up a lot of marbles, pick up, you know, a lot of different other things that where you don't want to find yourself, right? So this racetrack can definitely get very dirty, very quick, and we've already talked about it this weekend. A lot of drivers struggle to you know, get the dirt off their tires, and that's going to be one of the things, especially moving forward this weekend. If you find yourself off the racetrack, I think it's going to take a long time to get those tires back into that ideal window.
Yeah, I mean, talking to a lot of the drivers throughout the morning, they referenced Orlando, referenced Newcastle, 2 tracks that we go to that a lot of dirt on the exit of corners, and when drivers towards the lead group, even drivers towards the back, that drop a tire, it makes it really difficult when the next group rolls through. You run through the dirt, tires have now dirt on them, and so it usually makes the next corner 2, maybe 3 corners at a track like Daytona, which is, you know, corner after corner, rapid succession, to where you're trying to get all the marbles off your tires and regroup, and by then you're a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds behind, because 30 tires are a lot slower than it would be on a 50 tire, especially as you get up into the ranks, you know, the X30 side of things. So that's a big factor. We talked about this track being narrow. It's not like we're at Monaco, right? But it is narrow. You could still go 3 wide if you wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it.
Almost, because I feel like if you were going to start to compare, we're not at a street race, right? But if you wanted to compare from what we have at the national circuit now, outside of the Supernats, obviously, at the end of the year, but you could kind of call this, I would say, the Monaco of you know, paved racetracks that we go to year after year out.
Yeah, I mean, you could still go side by side. Some of the tricky parts of this racetrack, though, is corners like this, really fast rights with Rhino liner at the entry into the center of the corner, where you're not even braking for the X30 senior drivers, let alone KA, Mini, and Micro, whether it's junior or senior for the KA guys and girls. So corners like that make it tough to dive down the inside. This will be one of the biggest passing zones is turn 1, but as you notice, drivers like Qualy, drivers like Overbeck, slightly in front of him, the line into turn 1 is actually pretty narrow, pretty shallow. I know you've never been in before, Caleb. You kind of, we walked the track this morning, and you said, you know, I expect drivers to be opening up for turn 1. Normally you'd be right, but again, with the Rhino liner on the inside of the racetrack and just the way that turn 1 kind of goes downhill slightly, even though we're at a pretty flat surface, it does go downhill slightly. You don't want to enter too wide. That's why you'll see a lot of drivers, when they get towards turn 1 here, you'll see Overbeck in the final corner and then into turn 1, they have a really shallow approach. And what that does is, 1, you get into the corner, you get under the rubber, you get into that Rhino liner. Look at that. A lot of them are just using that liner, not entering wide at all. It also makes it really difficult to dive down the inside and make them move stick, right? So to me, this puts emphasis on happy hour and puts emphasis especially on qualifying. And as we look onto the timing and scoring sheets here, Massimino P1 down to Isambard P10, 3.5 tenths separates your top 10 drivers. And that's a big factor because, again, every position matters at a track like Daytona. It's a lot tougher than what it would be at a track like Newcastle, where there's wide passing opportunities, super long lap. You know, a lot of time to make things happen. We spoke to Travis Pettit this morning. He said qualifying is going to be everything. Again, you're not going to have the time that you would have at a bigger track with more opportunities to make moves to go out there and charge through the field. So qualifying has maybe more pressure than we've seen all year long.
Agreed, right? Qualifying, I think, is going to be very hard whenever you look at the races. I think it's going to be difficult as well. And I feel like learning this racetrack will also be hard for some of these drivers. We heard that, you know, there's no curbs here. There's no actual curbs here. It's just flat concrete that's kind of painted over it. So whenever you're looking for those markers, those I guess, tell signs of when to turn in and stuff like that, that's also a little bit more difficult. I know I would definitely struggle with something like that, not having those big curbs to kind of look at. But all the flat stuff, I think to move through the grass already this morning, as we talked in a couple of the first sessions, to move through the grass. But this racetrack, I'm sure it's going to provide us some great racing action. And if I have to pick a corner of which one's the most important out there on this racetrack, it's definitely turn number 11. The final corner out on the circuit here at Daytona. That racing line that we saw this morning as we walked the racetrack, you almost see that the groove is leading you straight into the dirt and off the racetrack. So that's the biggest thing. Momentum to carry good speed down the longest turn, I think, one of the longest turns in turn one that we have on the national circuit. So in my opinion, turn number 11 is one of the most important corners on the racetrack. But the unofficial results for the KA100 Senior Happy Hour practice are in. Paulie Massimino, top of the timing chart. Sebastian Garzone to Overbeck. Dominic Karai, Peyton Phillips, your top 5 for the Arcade Motorsports team this weekend. Paulie, double duty all year long. Sebastian Garzone talked about the strong year that rookie's had so far, and then James Overbeck as well. We had a really good conversation with James this morning, Alex, of what it meant for him to race here at the Daytona International Speedway, and you know what this track, how he's seen some of his idols grow up here and win races here in championships. So for James to be racing here, he said it's surreal, and I'm sure for all the NASCAR fans in the paddock and for all the NASCAR fans at home, this is definitely, I think, one of the coolest things coming in through the tunnel. Was, I think, was goosebumps for me at least. My first time here at the Daytona International Speedway. But
the coolest thing that James mentioned was he said, listen, he heard this. He said, there's not many bigger races, bigger tracks that he would like to, and has that success at in the past than Daytona. He said, listen, the only track that the only event I'd say that's cooler than winning at Daytona is Supernats. That's some rarefied air there, Caleb, and that is. That was a pretty cool thing for James to mention, how much this means to a guy like him, right? A guy that's his idol is Jimmy Jam. Jimmy Johnson, Mr. 7-time, had success here. Finished this past Daytona 500 on a one-off race for him. So James mentioned how much that meant to him to watch Jimmy Johnson do that, and obviously more and more, a lot of drivers have looked up to a lot of the NASCAR guys, or maybe your Rolex 24 happens every year here in January. So this racetrack has a lot of iconic races that come to it. USPKS has now put the Daytona Grand Prix as one of them.
And in my opinion, I think one of the most beautiful tracks that's going to provide us some great static shots as well all weekend long. At home, I hope you guys enjoy the view as much as we are here inside of the Kart Chaser compound. And again, we're in for a great weekend of racing. We're live 3 days this week. Well, I should say 2.5, right? Happy hour today. Again, already for some of these drivers setting themselves up for qualifying. That's coming up today. As well. I believe qualifying starting later on today at around 4:06 p.m. all the way till 5:42, and then the cookout by the United States Pro Kart Series team at 5:53 for all of the for those of you in the paddock here as well. So make sure you guys go enjoy that as well. A huge thank you to Mark Coates and the entire United States Pro Kart Series and Miami Series team as well here this weekend. So qualifying getting set to go green at 4:06. That was KA100 Senior. I'm not sure if that was Group 1 or Group 2 that just hit the racetrack, but I believe more getting set to go out. That was Group 1. So Group 2 getting set to hit the track here in a couple of moments, 3:06. So we'll quite on the airwaves and let you guys enjoy the banks here at Daytona International. Second half of these seniors on the racetrack. I feel like, Alex, coming into this weekend, driver on our screens, the kid from likes to call Brandon. The off-speed concepts racing, and actually I had a really good conversation with Brandon. And Concepts Racing, walking by every from the outside looking. He always he'd like to race there and race under that. This he definitely has the opportunity and a really good package. Already getting along, feels very welcome from what he's made. So Brandon Lemke, a champions here at the Kart Series in K100 Senior. No driver won 2 K championships. The names are endless, right? Connor Zilich in that mix. You talk about Alex Stanfield, Elio Meza, all drivers who are very with a lot of experience, a lot of credit, and a lot of I would say maturity in that. How about a new lid for these two guys as well? Matteo Pappas looks like a new Arai helmet on it as well for Gavin Bailiff by by Danoff Designs. You see Pappas drop a tire there on the exit of turn number 11. That's going to hurt his run on the main straightaway, but a very cool helmet. The design, I believe, behind a Richard Mill, obviously a sponsor of Burrell Art. So looks like Gavin and Finn new lids for the two of them this weekend. So that'll be I guess a cool aesthetic part to it, right? To see here. And then again, more drivers, more class throughout this field. Zerv's one of the ones that we've talked about in the 909. I know in previous times. Hamza Ambar looks like he's working his way through, and a couple of more drivers as well in this senior field. So it'll be exciting to see how a lot of these drivers kind of come into their own. But still, Paulie Massimino quickest with the 40.279. You see Enzo Vidmontian on the SLA Kart Republic up to second. Sebastian Garzone stays put in third. Christian Miles on the racetrack in fourth. One of the things that I do want to mention here, Alex, whenever we were talking to drivers this morning, especially I feel like Frankie and a lot more, we're saying how different the track was compared to session 1 to session 2. It seemed like everybody who went in that later session went almost half a second quicker because of how different it was for everybody out there. Different, and as well the amount of rubber laid down is different, but I don't think we've ever seen that big of a difference before at any racetrack. So it'll be interesting to see, what these times look like. And you see Christian Miles already only 0.02 of a second off of Paulie Massimino in this happy hour session. that's definitely a good showing so far, right? Especially for Pappas. I mean, you talk about his second full year in the senior ranks. That's a very, very good showing to put yourself inside of the top 10. For Garzone, I mean, that rookie's been very quick all year long. And as well for Gavin, I mean, talk about his return to KA senior racing action. So they're going to be up there definitely as well. A very, very good start to what's going to be, what's set to be, I believe, a full year of KA 100 racing this year at the United States Pro Kart Series. Eli Warren just right behind them, privateer operation against all the big teams, right? So good to see Eli, him and his dad, and I believe a tuner this weekend working to get that Red Speed machine up and further up the timing order and up the pylon as well. Going to start off the happy hour session, but Eli, I mean, again, definitely going to be a factor as this weekend goes on, so expect to see him work his way. You talk about Donovan Bonilla, he's currently 7th for the Rawson Performance Group. A couple of more drivers in this field as well. Down in 14th, Steven Eisert. A lot of laps in this happy hour session as well. A very long one here, Alex. 15 laps almost, right? And you talk about a 40-second lap. That's very, very quick. And I would say, I think, the fastest lap that we have across the national circuit as well. Yeah, I mean, take a look back to where we were last year, right, for the start of the United States Pro Kart Series at Speed Sports Racing Park. You talk about the field in that KA senior class. You know, it was stacked from top to bottom on the timing charts. And here this year, right, looks like more drivers have definitely come back, and new faces as well have definitely come to join the party this year. But Alex, I want to talk a little bit about the more technical side of things, and I feel like that's where you've kind of shown your expertise as well. Explain this to me. I'm starting to see a lot of drivers kind of do double inputs in a turn number 1, right? You have that initial turn in, and then a slight correction, and then back right as well, right? With I would say another turn in. So I would say like you have almost 3 inputs, a little bit of a correction, and then again another one back another corner.
Yeah, when you go to turn 1, you have the normal asphalt, right, with the repave. It's already got some grip down. When you get into turn 1, as it goes downhill, you have that rhino liner. A lot more grip than the normal racetrack has, right? So you turn in, through the slightly, really charge into the corner. You can ride rapid with the Ks. You really just got to chuck it in and hope it'll stick. Whereas in the X30s, you have to actually approach the rhino liner in turn 1 a little bit different than you would in the KA. But you turn in, you have that first initial input. The rear end wants to rotate on you, and then you hit that rhino liner, and it almost stops the rotation, and it almost stalls momentum. You got to put an extra bit of wheel into it and just floor it on the throttle. You have to trust the go-kart's going to stick. A lot of drivers there were mentioning that they were two-wheeling yesterday. So you're setting up the go-kart around turn 1. You're setting the go-kart up around turn 6. The fast double right with rhino liner on the tree and middle of the corner, where drivers like Gafera, Ryan, this morning, no brakes. Pro needed for that double right, which is crazy. think, because I cannot imagine. I remember when I was here last time running a KA, I needed some brakes. So, again, shows you with the repave, but then the Rhinoliner, what it can do and the magic that it can do for a go-kart. But that's 2 inputs. Expect that for especially. Those are drivers attacking the corner would be. And, again, anytime you enter turn 1, you're going to start to lose that rear slightly. And then you hit that Rhinoliner, and you almost have to want to cut too much in go-karting, but you've got to wait for that kart to come around. If you get in the gas too early, you might just get a weird instance where the go-kart kind of stalls on you. You almost have too much grip. Track's a big deal, and again, it just adds the chaos and, you know, the strategy behind what is Happy Hour. And again, going back to what we mentioned earlier, Caleb, I don't really know the number of drivers that obviously have been here. I'd say a decent amount have driven this racetrack before. For the drivers that haven't been here before, yesterday was their day. And there are certain drivers that haven't here at all, didn't come yesterday because they had to go to school. And so today was, you know, the day that they had to go out there and learn it. They had 3 practices, and then they had to go out there for Happy Hour right now. So, again, a tall order for the drivers that haven't been here. But nonetheless, with repave, it's essentially kind of a new racetrack, right, the way you approach it compared to what it used to be. But nonetheless, Happy Hour underway for our mini Swift drivers here. 2 groups split up for these young.
We were talking about the repave a little bit, Alan, and to me, it definitely is a very new racetrack, but I feel like it still has some of the characteristics to it I think that you used to see before the repave, right? You talk about the last corner. I know Jerry Fandrews out there has already been letting us know that it's a very bumpy corner. I mean, you saw it earlier as well, right? It definitely has a bump right before turn number 11 on the apex almost, it seems like, where it can either unsettle the go-kart or can just make you try and hold on to it that little bit longer. Again, you see how narrow it is around here, and more drivers go off, and Enzo just kind of confused to it all. But take a look at this, right? You have the apex in turn number 11, and a slight bump there, and you see how that just kind of moves Enzo a little bit wider. So we'll see. We talked, I think our key word last weekend was, and I think that's going to be for this weekend as well, right? You see Parker Ives a little bit off and loses all the momentum that he had. Building. So I was saying, to me, turn number 11 definitely critical, and I feel like turn number 1 as well, because you lose a lot of time, especially in this infield section as turns 4 and 5 kind of.
This racetrack's very technical, right? And so every corner has a purpose. There isn't one corner where you go out there and it's kind of just there to help you get around, right? You go through turn 11, its purpose is to get you on the front straightaway and have a good run towards turn 1. Turn 1, the purpose of turn 1 is to go out there and set up for 2 and then 3. Turn 3 is highly important because it's double left that sets you up for turn 5, which helps you climb the, not really climb the hill, but go down the back straightaway towards the bathroom section where you go to double right, turn 6 and 7. You don't want to mess up turn 6 and 7 because otherwise you're too wide, which sets up for the really tricky 9 and 10 complex as the 132 goes way off the racetrack.
Simon Jack Klein
in turn number 1. But like I was mentioning to me, you keep talking about which corners are important. To me, they're all important around this racetrack because it is so tough to put a lap together here. This is the double right, turn 6 and 7. You go around the bathrooms towards turn 8. Turn 9 and 10 is arguably the trickiest corner on the racetrack. It's a really almost awkward left-right chicane. It's really fun to drive, really tough to go side by side there. So expect to see a lot of drivers maybe have a drop down throughout the weekend. With how, it can get really...
You're really not going to go anywhere. I feel like we're going to see a lot of bottlenecking around this place, and you're really going to have to plan your race and be mature about it whenever you look at your approach on how you're going to get yourself through the field if you do have a bad qualifying.
2 things can be true, right? Because speaking with Martin Stone this morning, he said, listen, the way to make passes around this place is setting up the corners. You have to, like you mentioned, plan 2, 3, 4 corners ahead. That's normally the approach no matter what racetrack we go on. It's exaggerated, which we're at right now. You have to plan it more than maybe a track like Newcastle, right? Every corner is a passing opportunity. It's wide, long straights, decently hard braking zones. You can pass anywhere. But I am a big believer that any corner is a passing zone if you make it one. So no matter what, expect to see throughout the races tomorrow and into Sunday, at some point, drivers making a pass in every corner possible. And for me, like you mentioned, if we want to talk about which is the most important, which corners provide the best opportunity. I would still argue turn 1. Again, the natural line is slightly tighter than you would expect, but we've seen so many drivers even in this happy hour session alone below turn 1, right? The brake zone's really difficult. It's slightly downhill, and it's hard to get that kart in the groove. Turn 2 is a fast left. You can't really pass there, but turn 3 is a corner where you can catch somebody off guard if you get a good enough run. Then you go down the back straightaway towards the double right, turn 6 and 7, and into this corner, turn 8 and 9. That's where you're going to see the most bottlenecking, like you mentioned, Caleb, where it's a really tight left-right chicane, and you can make a pass there. I've done it before. The problem with making a pass in a turn 9 and 10 with the left-right chicane is if you throw it in on the left and you don't get it done, the driver's going to hold the outside, and then that becomes the inside for 10. And in doing so, it goes back to what you and I were talking about last weekend in Charlotte for CKNA, where you lose a second anytime you go out there and make a pass and go side by side for 3 corners. This racetrack exponentially hurts your chances at winning a race come heat race time or the main events later on Sunday when you go side by side for more than 1 corner, because it's a 40-second lap for most classes, plus or minus a couple seconds. And it is such a tight racetrack that, again, you can't go out there in a 4th to go side by side like you would at Newcastle.
Around with Maxwell Macha on the Velocity Racing Sodi machine. Right behind him, Lawrence Perriman as well. So if you haven't already, go check out Kart Chaser Kids, give it a follow, and check out our latest interview with Lawrence Perriman, talk about his new helmet, on the inspiration behind it, what kind of went into the design. And I gotta tell you, Alex, Lawrence Perriman's basketball helmet, inspired by Lando Norris's, basketball helmet design out at the Miami Grand Prix, is definitely my favorite around the paddock so far. We see a lot of cool designs, but definitely a very unique take on it, and his own touch to it as well. And the coolest thing to me is that you can actually feel, it feels like a basketball. If you pick up that helmet, it feels like an actual basketball as well. So
yeah, make sure you don't give it a dribble.
Yeah, hopefully not. That's a very expensive paint job, I would assume. But yeah, for Lawrence, for sure, I would say, shout out to his parents as well, and I'm sure Lawrence was really good this year to get a new lid like that. So hopefully brings him some luck this year for Lawrence. Again, had a good year. It's on the podium and on the top step as well after a year away, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what he can do for Maxwell as well. Back on familiar chassis, back on familiar team with it. These kids as well. I mean, right, Max, a former Super Nationals champion, and we'll continue to see them grow and continue to see them as well improve it. And these lap times as well are pretty, I would say, some of the fastest that we're going to see all year long. A 42 for your micros and minis, so a very quick lap, and again, you really can't force all too much. I really feel like if you have a lot of laps around this place, it's just not, I would really say it's about pacing yourself, right? Taking your time, planning your move. I would say it's definitely going to be the key to pass, especially these younger classes as well. And we talk about how narrow it is. I mean, these kids for sure, it definitely seems like they're racing on a normal size racetrack with these smaller cadet chassis.
Well, P1 right now, Enzo Di Janeiro, he has been on a tear this year. I mean, he's been one of the drivers to beat no matter what racetrack we go to, no matter what series we go to. He was really quick doing the road tax stuff, won a ticket to Bahrain, well earned for him. He's a return driver to the Road Tax Grand Finals, so he'll be going again this year as well. He was really strong up the Schools of Winter Series, and now seeing him here for the first round of the United States Pro Kart Series. No surprise to see him top the board here in Happy Hour. So Enzo Di Janeiro really strong on the Paralympic, the number 190 machine. But you mentioned it, not only 42.114 is a pretty short lap for these mini Swift drivers, but how tight is it up at the top of the board there? Di Janeiro, Francisco Ives, less than 7/100ths of a second separating your top 3 drivers. That's exciting stuff as we head into qualifying. Orioli, Holden Myers, your top 5.
more happy hour action getting set to come your way. X30 Jr, I believe, next.
Stop. Stop. I'm tired of all this branding business, okay? Branding this, branding that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200?
We were working off a delay YouTube stream.
Okay? Take a walk with me.
We were announcing off of the YouTube stream, which was obviously delayed for us, so that's why our announcing was delayed.
Rims, they got chains.
We still got nothing on our screen.
Electrical stands, tilt seats. They got MXCs, and if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental U.S. over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
To the finish line. Who is it going to be? And it's Sean Perez who wins in Crescent.
Ty Fisher wins $1,000 in KA100 Junior.
Alex Stanfield played it perfectly here. Told him to wait. Stanfield wins the Duffy in 2024 for TV Kart.
Amarillo Kart Complex is now the official distributor for TV Kart in the continental U.S. Become a dealer today.
Ready to elevate your racing game? Introducing Apex, your 24/7 personal karting coach. Apex is your ultimate racing companion. Get expert advice anytime, anywhere. From setup tips to mental strategies, Apex has you covered. Fine-tune your car for peak performance. Get personalized advice on adjustments like tire pressure and chassis settings. Apex helps you master the track, from overtaking strategies to wet-weather driving techniques, and to resilience to perform under pressure. Apex keeps you focused, confident, and race ready. Using Apex is simple. Sign up, ask your question, and receive instant advice from top-tier coaches. With Apex, your personal karting coach, you're never alone. Get instant expert advice on everything from setup to technique. Unlock your full potential with Apex. Your journey to victory starts here. Happy racing.
Welcome back to the World Center of Racing at the Daytona International Speedway. You're watching Kart Chasers live coverage of the opening round of the United States Pro Kart Series. X30 Jr out on the racetrack now. And Alex, compared to where we started last year at Houston with this X30 Jr field, a very, very good showing with 22 drivers this time out. You know, compared to, I believe you were in the teens last time out, to have 22 of some of the nation's best young X30 drivers is definitely a good sight to see, and you see it's definitely a healthy class so far this year.
Yeah, the junior class is strong this year, like you mentioned. Last year still had some good entries and some phenomenal racing from what I remember at the United States Pro Kart Series, but looking at the entry list and looking at the drivers on the racetrack right now in X30 Jr, I mean, you have the likes of Van Chev for Austin Force Group, Tristan Murphy, right? Nathan Dupuis, spoke to him this morning Nate Dogg had a really good showing last weekend at the Cup Karts North America Spring Naps at Charlotte, looking to have more of the same success that he had last weekend. Looking to put it together on a Sunday is what Nate was telling me, and what DCD, his coach, was telling me as well. Teo Palamau has always been very, very quick. Ethan Skymienchich, always a really quick driver as well. Sarah Bradley spoke to her, felt really, really quick on her Speed Concepts racing machine on the Sodi Kart, but for Speed Concepts Racing. Edward Kennedy for Energy Corsa Americas, always a driver to watch out there on the racetrack as well. Ashton Moon, cannot forget about Ashton Moon. He is ultra quick there on the screen behind Alexander Vanchev.
We talked about a lot so far already today, Alex. We talked about the track. We talked about a lot of things, right? The inputs on that some drivers may be doing, but good to hear from some drivers who have raced here in the past. One of our own, we talked about Jerry earlier. He was telling us how back in December for Daytona Kart Week, the right side of, the right side tires were barely worn because essentially you're turning, I would say, right very often, so you're putting more load onto the left side of tires. So what Jerry's kind of telling us here is that we would expect to see a lot of drivers start to flip the tires. So for those of you at home, you would grab the tires that are on the left-hand side of the kart and put them on the right-hand side of the kart, and then vice versa, right? So I really think tire strategy is going to be another one of the big things. I think tire flipping is one of the things that we see week in, week out, but I think here at Daytona is going to be one of the most critical tracks to do it at. And again, looking at it, you turn
left essentially 2 times.
2-3 times, I would
right,
say.
because you turn left for turn 2 doesn't count. It's an easy left. Turn 3 and turn 4 is really one big corner, right? So, okay, count that as 1. And then you have turn 8 and turn 9, also essentially 1 corner. So, let's say 2 left-handers, 6 right-handers is the ratio of corners, right? There's 11 corners on the racetrack, but you got to combine the 2 double lefts. So, that does make a lot of sense. I know I did that when I was here. And again, it's not the only track that we see it at, but this is, again, one of the more exaggerated racetracks in terms of you're going to be seeing drivers maybe flip tires every couple of sessions to go out there and make sure that their right sides aren't worn. Left sides aren't worn. So, again, using those tires, the Ronald liner doesn't help. I know we actually walked over to the TKG tent, and I was giving Finn Bailiff a little bit there on his tire wear, because looking at the go-kart,
Give him some love.
exactly, some love, right? Because those right side tires look beautiful. They look great. Those left sides were graining hard.
Oh yeah.
So I would not be shocked to see those.
And again, for Finn, right? It's the first weekend back in X30, and I feel like that's one of the classes where you really have to look out for what you're doing with the tires, with how you're treating them. You gotta treat them nice, right? Talk to the tires nice and treat them nice as well. So that's I think a couple of the big things, and this is all different things that you have week to week, but I think this track it's a driver's racetrack. We say that a lot about different tracks. We say that about MCC a lot, but I feel like Daytona here this weekend is definitely going to be a driver's racetrack. This is where you're going to see a lot of drivers flourish. We heard from the likes of Caden McQueen. It's very technical from the likes of Blake Nash earlier that, tracks that they have at home, right? You talk about Adams out in Cali, and as well as a couple of other tracks that are very similar to what they have. And again, a lot of drivers have grown up racing on tracks like that. Again, if you're from North Carolina, you grew up in Mooresville. You have Trackhouse, which is, I would say, the biggest difference to
I gotta say,
Daytona.
Trackhouse is pretty similar to this. It's no longer around, but in Florida, for all my drivers that used to run at Ocala, right?
I could have predicted that.
The OGP drivers, Austin Garrison, Ryan Norbert,
way before
those type of guys. Garrison not racing this weekend, but Ryan is. And again, those type of guys go out there, and this racetrack is very similar, very tight, almost like a bull ring. I wouldn't say Daytona's a bull ring necessarily, but it's close, and it's a pretty narrow track. Ocala, I think, I would almost argue is narrower than what this racetrack is, but those two tracks to me are the most similar together. Lap time wise, we're down in the mid to high 30s, especially when we got to the X30. And then Shifter was even faster than that around that place. So, again, one of the shortest tracks that we go to, one of the coolest tracks. I'm so glad that we're back here on the national calendar. Always really cool to see. Focusing on the lap times here really quickly, Alexander Vanchev, Ashton Moon, the two drivers I focused on when the session started. P1 and P2, 11 thousandths separating those two drivers who are heading into qualifying. Session's obviously not done just yet. Theo Salamalver in the third place spot. Sarah Bradley, Edward Kennedy on the Engine Corsa machine, rounding out your top 5, 2.5 tenths separating those 5 drivers. Further down the grid, Martin Henrio, Benham, Abernathy, Cole Medeiros, Nathan Dupuy, and then Leonardo Cervelli. Your top 10 drivers, about half second separating your top 10 there. Pretty big field spread. I'd say the largest field spread we've seen out of the classes so far. Like I mentioned, usually that sweet spot is about 3.5 tenths from first to 10th for the classes that we have seen so far. So for the X30 Jr drivers, a little bit more spread out than usual, but they always seem to find each other on the racetrack and always put on a really good show for us. And no matter what, Vanchev and Loon, separated by seemingly nothing, is something that I'm pretty excited for heading into qualifying and heat races.
And I will say this here, Al, especially looking at kind of how these drivers are getting themselves in a space. You know, we saw Sarah there earlier pull off and get herself into a good window to really try and put in a good lap. I think out of all the tracks, this is one of the places where in qualifying, you're going to find yourself tripping yourself up with other drivers on the rear bumper, and you know, you don't want to hold anybody up for sure. I know Blake Hunt talked about penalties at the drivers meeting today, so you definitely don't want to hold anybody up, but again, like, you really need to put yourself in a good position. And when you think about X30 Jr, I always look back to the Super Nationals, and there was a lot of games that are being played. This is one of those tracks where you do not want to do that, and I emphasize this for anybody who can hear me out in the paddock. There's no need for it. Just go out there, set in a lap, get yourself into a good position, and try to get on with it, right? That to me is important part.
The little bit you gain by a toe on the front straight and the small back straight we have, and I guess heading into turn number 11, it won't matter, because if you get held up by that driver, you'll lose 2 times the amount you gained on the short straightaways we have here at Daytona. So again, it's better off, especially as you get to the faster classes. I could see the argument for micro and mini, but when you get into X30, especially the junior and the senior guys, no matter whether it's K or X30 for that matter, there is really not a whole lot you gain, but there's a lot more, like you mentioned, Caleb, that you can actually lose by being in a group of 3 or 4, and if the group in front of you is slower than you, it can ruin the qualifying really, really fast. And as we've touched on throughout this happy hour, qualifying is going to matter so much. I think this is the most important qualifying day of the year so far.
Agreed. Alexander Vanchev, top of the timing charts in X30 Jr Happy Hour that just got wrapped up. Ashton Moon sits second, and for his second race with Speed Concepts, for his second race in X30 Jr, a really good showing for Ashton on that SCR Speed Lab Racing Engines combination here this weekend. So that's that for X30 Junior's KA100. Close to X30 Pro Senior. Ryan Norberg and a couple of others are going to go head-to-head in the happy hour session. I also feel like, Alex, we haven't talked about it too much, but long run pace is, I think, going to be one of the biggest things to look out for, especially this week, right? You have very long races, but getting yourself into the long run pace, happy hour is the best time to do that. We talked about that last year. You're running 15 laps almost with, I believe, 12-minute sessions, you said, so that's a long time. And that, I feel like, out of the weekend is the best time for you, for the team, for, you know, a lot of other things to find gear for what's going to work on the long run, to find that pace, to find that comfortableness, and to get yourself into the zone when we get into it. So these happy hour sessions are really critical, right? You talk about getting yourself ready for the happy hour sessions, but also getting yourself ready for what's going to be long run pace when we get into main event racing action.
Well, happy hour is interesting, right? Because some drivers use happy hour as a way to prep for heat races in the main event. A lot of drivers, I know I did this, happy hour was my setup for qualifying, right? Qualifying's 5 laps versus roughly 15 during happy hour. So it's a big difference. There's 10 more laps in happy hour versus qualifying, so it really depends on what you're looking for. You're looking to see how your go-kart handles on a long race, or do you want to see how your go-kart handles over 5 laps for qualifying? And usually to me that is the most valuable time that you can have on the racetrack, and that's why you'll see a lot of drivers pull off early out of the happy hour. They go out there and do 6 or 7 laps and say, you know what, I got my data that I needed for qualifying, and they're good to go. Some drivers elect to stay out there for the entire session and just see what happens, right, and see how their go-kart falls off or gets better as the session goes on. But you mentioned it, right? To me, long run pace is tough around this racetrack for a couple reasons, right? For one, the tire deg, which from what I've been told by a couple drivers, one of them being Grant Rusprack, It seems like the tire deg around this place is less with the repave compared to what it used to be, because it used to actually be almost a cheese grater on the tires. Now it seems like it's a little bit nicer to the tire, but like we mentioned, with it being, 7 right-handers to 2 left-handers, you're really abusing that left side of the go-kart there, and that's why we're seeing a lot of drivers have graining occur earlier on in the weekend than maybe we'd be accustomed to seeing at other racetracks. So it'll be tough. I also think it's a racetrack that's hard to put a lap together in general, let alone for a race. And you're going to see drivers, whether they seem robotic or not, right? Oh, they don't make mistakes. You're going to see some drivers make mistakes this weekend.
I mean, mistakes happen, right? They can really get anyone here this weekend. But for some other drivers here, it was a pretty good year last year for Martin Stone. He struggled in the opening round of 2025, I must say, here at the United States. Sorry, goodness gracious.
Hey, Riley. You want to play that Martin Stone interview? Copy, no worries.
Sketchy still got it in the single speed side of things, and I think this is his first time back in single speed since he ran the CKNA Grand Nationals last year on the 4-cycle side of things. But Alex, so far, we're almost at the cusp of qualifying. About everything, right? You talked about the racetrack, of what it took to go faster on this place. You've obviously driven. I've only kind of seen from the outside, looking at the driving. What do you think are the keys to go purple in qualifying?
Clean track. Go out there by yourself. There's no need. I mean, maybe if you're in a micro mini class, like I mentioned earlier, you might find the value in going out there with a driver similar to your speed and getting a tow. And if you can work together, sure. But 5 laps seems like a lot of laps until it's not. All of a sudden, lap 5 comes up with you pretty quick, and then you haven't put a banker lap in, and all of a sudden you have a bad qualifying, right? So going out there and just making sure you have, for one, a banker lap, and that's the goal for any qualifying session ever, right? Go out there and at least do a lap that you're happy enough with, that if the rest of the session goes, south, then, okay, you at least have a lap that you can fall back on. But to go out there and put a purple lap together, go out there and be P1, especially in a class like KA, whether it's Masters, Junior, Senior, or the X30 guys and girls, clean track is going to be key. It's a small racetrack. It's hard to find clean air around this place, but the best that you can, that's the goal. Putting a good lap together, making sure you hit your marks. And this track, again, like I mentioned, it's 11 corners, but it's 11 really tricky corners. Don't try to overdrive it. We heard Caden McQueen speak to us this morning. He said, listen, you have to drive this place 8 tenths. Right? You don't want to go out there. Usually drivers say, oh, I'll go 10 tenths. Right? Even though 11 tenths is not really possible mathematically. Oh, I'm driving 11 tenths. A lot of these guys are saying that they're driving 8 and 9 tenths, and even that's over the limit. We've seen a lot of drivers blow the brake zone in turn number 1.
Didn't he say 80%? Was that what he said? You have to drive this track 80%?
Which is also 8 tenths.
Okay,
that's how math works.
It got lost in translation there, but yes, agreed. It was 8 tenths. He said you had to drive the track 80%, which, again, explain that a little bit, right? What it means to drive a racetrack 80%, because I feel like oftentimes you want to find yourself driving at 100%, but down on the back, whoa, Elefante way off the racetrack there.
He was probably driving 100%.
A couple of moments ago, and there you go. Right, so.
Well, what that really means is just not abusing the tire. Don't go out there and push like you would at a track like Newcastle, like Orlando, that rewards, almost overdriving, charging into the corner. A track like Daytona, it rewards patience, it rewards smoothness, right? And oftentimes that means driving 8 to 9 tenths, maybe even 7 tenths to go out there and put a good lap together. Don't overdrive it, because again, these corners come up on you so quickly. It's a short track. It's almost like a bull ring, to where if you charge into a corner too fast, you find yourself missing the apex by a couple feet. A couple feet here
is off the track.
A couple feet somewhere else, maybe like Trackhouse, you have some leeway, you have some runoff. Or in general, a track like Newcastle, you can miss the apex by a foot or two and just roll the speed through the center of the corner. Where a track like Daytona, missed the apex by a foot or two, if you didn't go off the track, you at least have to bail out of the lap, right? It's pretty much lap over. So again, just driving not above the tire, right? Like don't go out there and cook them up, driving more than what the tire can handle, like maybe you would at other racetracks that can handle it. So again, you're gonna see a lot of drivers probably go out there and drive 10/10 and drop some tires. We've seen it all day, all morning. We've seen drivers blow the brake zone in turn number 1. It's already a tricky corner as it is. There's no real reason to me, if I was going out there trying to go qualify and put a pole, to try to find that extra foot of braking zone, because again, the exits here are much more important than the entries.
And I want to talk about the pit exit as well, and you know what that corner kind of, what we see, or sorry, grid exit, I should say. There's a very long strip of dirt on that pit exit that you see, just a lot of dust and a lot of marbles that are collected right there. So I feel like that opening lap as well is probably going to be just as important, right? Getting your tires into that window. You talked about, keeping them in a good window, not overheating them, and avoiding that grease over point. But also, to me, getting them warm and getting them clean, I think is going to be the biggest task for a lot of these drivers. And if you find yourself behind a driver that's going to make a mistake in front of you, then I really think you're in a very critical position when you talk for the heat races tomorrow. So that's, there's a lot of things I think about this racetrack that have made it so characteristic. It's exciting to see, Alex, and it's exciting to see United States Pro Kart Series come out here as well this year. I believe Cup Karts North America has come out here in the past, as well as WKA, but this is the first of 3 big nationals that's, definitely pulled the trigger and come out here this year. And, so we'll see how this year goes on and continues to progress. But already, as you guys saw the shot from earlier on, anything off track, and especially the grid exit, very, very tricky to kind of navigate. So there's a lot of dirt being kicked up. We've heard from a lot of drivers, and as well keeping it out of your airbox. We look back at Orlando, Alex, to round 3 and 4 of the SCUSA Pro Tour. A lot of reliability issues. I want to take a look back to the SCUSA Pro Tour, Alex. We talked about reliability issues as well for some drivers with all the dirt and all the grass that they found themselves off the racetrack. And that's the same thing I feel like that we might see today. It's keeping your stuff clean, being on top of your equipment, being on top of the motors, cleaning out the carburetors, the air boxes, and everything that kind of goes through the air filtration system into the motors. I really think is going to be key to keep the reliability of your engines good, especially we have a very busy stretch that we're about to head into with a lot of time on these motors. But again, staying on top of that, and for the teams as well to staying on top of that, I really think is going to be key for performance this year, and could also be another factor as well with everything off the racetrack.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if I can make some rounds tonight and talk to some of the drivers, especially in the KA class, where you tend to see a lot of drivers struggle with keeping their carburation clean, right? And so I want to see if that's been a factor. I'm sure it is. Just seeing all the dust on the pit exit, like you've been talking about, Caleb, all that happens from the drivers dropping a tire in turn 11, and it's literally throwing the dirt onto the grid exit. I was standing on the front stretch where the flagman is, and I was getting pelted with dirt from drivers dropping tires in 11. But with the wind, it was throwing it all the way towards the front straightaway.
I will say this, if you're standing trackside this weekend, invest in a pair of sunglasses, invest in a pair of eye protectors, because anything, I believe, by the grandstands, I was standing there for a second, my eyes obviously very watery and whatnot. I wasn't sad or anything, but everything that, there's a lot of drivers dropping a tire or two even off the racetrack. So we'll see. I would say invest, if you want to watch trackside, invest on a pair of sunglasses or something that protects your eyes. But here are your unofficial results for KA100 Masters Happy Hour. Renato Jeter, David quickest, Martin Stone to Falcone, Paulo Lafonte, and Randy Klimek. Your top 5 in that field. Skitchy back to Estes, Lawyer, Montopoli, and LeBeau as well. Your top 10. A lot of, I would say, good names in that field that they're very pleasing to say.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, very well. On the track now, X30 Pro. And again, I believe, if I'm not mistaken here, 19 drivers in this field. Ryan Norberg, late entry to this one. But again, when you look at Mr. 9-time now, definitely one of the ones to look out for.
Yeah, Ryan's always the guy that whenever he's entered into, no matter what class it is, you have to look out for Mr. Ryan Norbert, Mr. Disney, you like to joke around and call him. But a lot of strong names in this class. Paulie Massimino being one of them for BJR MDR.
What about a rookie
Frankie
as well?
Mossman for Jay Howard, returning to the Pro X30 side of things. Quentin Macpherson on RPG as well. Jacob Polar for Vice Racing has been super fast all year long. Alex Feldstein, a driver that you can't fail to mention whenever he's entered. I will say that when thinking of Alex Feldstein, I look back to Dowsman, Wisconsin, where he was top 3, top 4 in pace all weekend long. But because of how tall he is at a track like Dowsman with the Rhino Liner, he struggled. It worries me for him at a track like Daytona, which is such a tight and technical racetrack. With the Rhino Liner, a driver like him who's tall may struggle a little bit more. Ryan Raffa, we spoke to him this morning. Lap time-wise, he was one of, if not the quickest driver yesterday through the practices. So heading into happy hour, he has high expectations. He said, I don't want to think about it too much because he's got the pace to go out there and win it. He's just focused on every session that happens. And for a guy like Ryan Raffa, that would be really, really cool to see him towards the front of the field here in X30 Pro.
I was saying, a couple of rookies in this field. Davin Roberts, one of the ones that I'm keeping an eye on. Talked to him earlier, and he was saying just, it's already been different. The practice sessions have been a little different. Getting his elbows out has been one of the things that he's had to do, especially in practice. I mean, he said he's racing against a lot of these older guys and earning his respect, has been key for him so far to start off the weekend. So for Davin to be out there, and again, the return of Finnegan Bailiff to the X30 package, I mean, the list goes on, right, with drivers, and I feel like, it has to be said, Garrison's on in the field, and a couple of other the big names that we're used to seeing out here in the X30 Pro field aren't here this weekend, and it really gives an opportunity to some of the young drivers, to some of the drivers who are, waiting for their moment. This is your weekend. This is the weekend where you have the opportunity to go out there and to flourish and to show what you can do. And again, you still have Brian in this field. You still have the likes of Frankie Mossman, Kolar, who's been up there all year long, Paulie as well, who's been a household name all year long. It's definitely, drivers that you have to look out for. And you look at where Davin Roberts is on your timing charts right now. That is a very, very good start for a kid who's very young, who, again, is still learning about everything he's doing week after week. So that's, you talk about earning your respect. Going top 2 in happy hour is a very good showing for Davin Roberts and the Ryan Perry Motorsports Group. Davin, the only X30 Pro driver for Perry this year, so we'll see, right? And again, this kid already, to me, super impressive this weekend to be able to do what he's doing so far, and as well through the field, right? This is the weekend for drivers to flourish. This is the weekend to put your name in the spotlight with all eyes on you.
Well, all eyes right now on Ryan Norbert to see what he's doing. Put a 38.797 on the board, 2 tenths clear of the field. Roberts, Mossman, Finn Bailiff in 4th, 2.5 tenths back from Mr. 9-Time. That's a pretty good shout there for a driver that doesn't really hop into the X30 seats very often. Kolar in 5th, Quinn Macpherson, Massimino, Remy Andretos. How about that for a driver making his 2nd start on the X30 side of things in senior for TKG and Darrell Art there. Caden McQueen just eclipsed them lap time-wise to go P8. Caden McQueen, they were quick yesterday, working on it. Still working on the go-kart today. They're half second off right now in happy hour. Who knows, obviously, the mindset going into happy hour, what teams are trying, what the goal of their happy hour session is. But usually in happy hour, the goal is to go out there and put a fast lap so you can start towards the front of the grid come qualifying time. With Caden McQueen, he's going to want a little bit more pace out of that Energy Corsa Americas team and chassis there. Levins and Raffa 10th and 11th. So Ryan Raffa needs to find a little bit more pace on board his OTK machine. And for a driver like he mentioned to us this morning how quick he was yesterday, probably maybe a little bit surprised to see himself further down the order. But again, this is a long happy hour session. We still have 7 minutes left in this session. A lot of laps to be put down here. Andretos goes to 8th. Norberg has not improved in his lap time, unlike Frankie Mossman, who has to go to P2. Less than 2 tenths back from Norberg now. Roberts 3rd. I'm excited for this race. I'm excited to see, like you mentioned, some names that we're not familiar with, maybe in the X30 senior side of things. Mossman, usually a name that we are accustomed to seeing, obviously on the road to Indy side of things, but obviously in the KA, where he got his maiden national championship here in the stateside for the Scusa Winter Series. Really, really cool stuff for Frankie Mossman. I'm really excited to see him take the fight to Ryan Norberg.
And as well for him, double duty this weekend. KA, X30 Pro, talked about how his ribs were feeling earlier today, and he said they were kind of sore in KA, I must say, right? You talk about cars, and he's coming here racing double duty at a racetrack. I mean, I really can't say, Alex, but to me, from the outside looking in, it seems like a pretty physical racetrack, if I must say so. There's a lot of fast corners, it seems like. What can you kind of say to that, especially for the drivers doing double duty this weekend?
Anytime you have a track with a lot of grip, it's going to be physical, whether or not the corners are long sweepers or not. This track has a combination of it, right? Because turn one is a pretty tight hairpin, but you're actually entering it with quite a bit of speed, and the go-kart's sliding into the corner, and then it pretty much parks itself on the rhino liner, and it leans on the left side of your body there, and it's pretty aggressive. And then you have the really fast turn two. Turn 3 and 4 is a long sweeper. A lot of these drivers are in what we like to call go-karting shape, so it's not a big deal, but you go through a long sweeper like that for 15 straight minutes of this happy hour session is, and all of a sudden, you know, you're having a rough time, and then you go down the long back straightaway into turn 6 and 7, another double right-hander, loading the left side of your body, loading your neck, and then the quick left-right turn 9 and 10. That's actually probably the easiest corner on your body there, and then the fast right to finish the lap. So this track has it all. It's a lot of combination of different factors that could be, you know, plaguing some drivers' ribs, neck. Anytime you're doing double duty, it's tough on the body, no matter how good of a shape you're in. And a racetrack like this, which has a lot of grip and constantly turning the cart, constantly loading the left and right side of your body, it is no surprise to see some drivers struggle physically if they're running double duty, but as part of it all, it's part of the sport of racing, and it's part of, you know, the respect that these drivers deserve when they're going out there on the racetrack, you know, putting their body out there and really showing the physicality that the go-karts provide.
If you want to hear from some of these drivers as well, I know our social media team has been very busy all morning. Go check out our official Instagram page, kart.chaser, to check out some of the interviews. I know Caleb Gaffaro's interview was just posted as well, and on what his weekend's kind of looking like as well, leading up to this one. As well, Lawrence Perriman, we talked about his helmet. That interview is actually live as well on Kart Chaser Kids in collaboration with Kart.Chaser, our official Instagram page. Just go give them a follow. Grassroots as well. We had a really good month for our grassroots pages as well. If you want to keep up with some of the biggest regional series in the U.S., go check that out as well. Our social team, very hard at work. We have people from all over the place. People out in the Bahamas and up in Canada, scattered all around the U.S. as well. So huge shout out to our entire social team, who I know is hard at work as well this morning and this afternoon as well, to bring you guys all the action and bring all the action out to your home, right? And as well, let us know where you guys are watching from, where you guys are tuning in from. If it's your living room, if it's your trailer, your tent, wherever it is, let us know where you're watching from. We want to know. And we're excited to have you guys with us for what I know is going to be a great 2025 racing season. The regular season finally getting kicked off here with the first of the big three, the United States Pro Kart Series, the Stars and Stripes for the Daytona Super Grand Prix here this weekend. But you look at the timing charts, Frankie Mossman, top of the board. Ryan Norberg back to Davin Roberts, Kolar, and Paulie Massimino here, Alex.
Yeah, well, Frankie Mossman tops the board, like you mentioned. Norberg, Roberts, Kolar, Massimino's 3/10 separates the top five. Caden McQueen's found some pace since I last spoke about him a couple minutes ago. Up to P6, needs about 3/10 to get to the top of the board there. Quentin Macpherson, Malif, Lorenko, and Dratos, your top 10. 3/10 separates 1 through 10. Quentin Macpherson goes to 5th, so a really good showing for Quentin. Haven't seen him in a go-kart in quite some time, and for a driver that's pretty tall for karting standards, taller than us, Caleb. For a driver that is tall, that I would suspect maybe struggle on a track with a lot of grip, is making it work on that Robinson Performance Speed Cosmic.
I hate to spoil the party here for everybody watching on at home, but I was just looking at the forecast to get ourselves prepared for what we might see later on.
Don't say it.
60% chance of a word I will not say for Sunday afternoon and Sunday. So 60% chance I don't know how accurate that may be. We'll have to get with our very own Carson Clements to take a look at that for us, how the clouds are acting.
If
there's some cumulonimbus in the area,
if it were, if we, oh, you said,
oh, goodness
you said
gracious!
Oh, I was gonna say
so
precipitation.
Sorry. I am so sorry.
Well, since you said it, if we were to see some rain around this racetrack, that would throw a wrench in things. Normally it already does, but a track like this, which has a lot of grip, usually tracks that have high grip, when water hits the racetrack, it actually becomes exponentially worse. And all of a sudden you have
Rhino liner as well. Ooh,
so it
I'm
becomes
excited.
very slick.
You know what? I hope it does rain.
Wow. You just ruin a lot of people's days.
I am so sorry to all those of you in the paddock. And to those of you watching on at home, it may be a good weekend. It may be a wet one later on, but we'll see. For now, we have some dry racing today and tomorrow. That's it for Happy Hour. We talked about it, the most important session of the weekend, getting set to go green in a couple of moments, qualifying. Coming up next, you're watching the United States Pro Kart Series, the Daytona Super GP, live on Kart Chaser. We'll be right back with more.
Brandon.
Bro, there was I couldn't tell because
All right, stop.
I couldn't really see.
Stop.
There's a driver.
I'm tired of all this branding business, okay? Branding this, branding that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200?
Dude,
we know, okay? Take a walk with me.
Obviously, we're going on a delay and everything.
At Shop AKR, they have everything you need to start racing at a very cheap and affordable price. They have MXC rims, they got chains, electrical stands, tilt seats. They got MXCs. And if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental US over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
All the way up to the finish line. Who is it going to be? And it's Sean Perez who wins in Preston.
Ty Fisher wins $1,000 in KA100 Junior.
Alex Stanfield played it perfectly here. Told him to wait. Stanfield wins the Duffy in 2024 for TV Kart.
Amarillo Kart Complex is now the official distributor for TV Kart in the continental U.S. Become a dealer today.
Ready to elevate your racing game? Introducing Apex, your 24/7 personal karting coach. Apex is your ultimate racing companion. Get expert advice anytime, anywhere. From setup tips to mental strategies, Apex has you covered. Fine-tune your car for peak performance. Get personalized advice on adjustments like tire pressure and chassis settings. Apex helps you master the track, from overtaking strategies to wet-weather driving techniques, and to resilience to perform under pressure. Apex keeps you focused, confident, and race ready.
Using Apex is simple. Sign up, ask your question, and receive instant advice from top-tier coaches. With Apex, your personal karting coach, you're never alone. Get instant expert advice on everything from setup to technique. Unlock your full potential with Apex. Your journey to victory starts here. Happy racing.
is split into two groups, so we're still with a couple of other names in that one. Hudson Howard, Patowski, Leo Simone coming off a big win over in Orlando. And, you know, the list goes on and on with drivers. 17 out on the racetrack now. Diesel Maxwell, 17, checkered flag in the air. So that's going to be it for the first half. That's your B group. Westbrook, so 43-2-2-4 out.
Yeah, here's the deal with this qualifying session. So Dutch Westbrook is in this group for a couple reasons. I was actually watching the one of the practices and into the happy hour, and he had a rough happy hour session. So he got into it a couple of drivers there. I think he knocked the front end, the front left toe out quite a bit, and had a slow session. And that's why he's in this group, this slower group. He puts a 43-2-2-4 on the table. I'm curious how that lap holds. A 42.8 was the lap time they were all chasing with Hudson Howard during the happy hour session. So if that is anything to go off of, then, well, Westbrook's about 0.4 off. But I'm curious how this track progresses as it gets as it goes on. I've gotten word that it might have actually cooled down slightly since this happy hour session. So I'm curious how that progresses the racetrack as well. And overall, happy hour is different from qualifying. You got a 12-minute session compared to a 5-lap session.
And
qualifying.
that's really quick.
So all of a sudden you go from happy hour where you're trying to test your long run pace into a qualifying session where it's the shortest session of the entire weekend. So 43.224, the lap time that groups C and D are going to all be chasing. But a solid lap there for the Bennett driver, Logan Arteta, Caden Cladera, Max Santana, Yusuf Adi, your top 5 drivers. That was 17 of the 34 here in the micro Swift class.
Again, this is the Daytona Super Grand Prix presented by Ryan Perry Motorsports, Parolin, and AMAX. Huge thank you to our sponsors as well here, MG Tires, Marks, and Miami Series USA East for making it possible for us to be out here and for us to go racing as well, and as well for our official partners, VP, official fuel supplier of the United States Pro Kart Series, Elf Oil, Kartlift, Franklin Motorsports, Pyrzino Chassis, AIM, Studio 52 with Ken and Kayla Johnson. Again, you can order your photos through them. Comet Racing Engines and AMAX as well, the sponsor of our wristbands here this weekend. But qualifying continue to go underway. The second group, your A group of qualifying here. And
teammates.
Jay Howard Development. A great start for them, a great start for Jay Howard. And we'll see what these two young guns can do.
It's nice to have two very quick drivers underneath 1/10 there. I know we talked about it during warm-up, during happy hour, of, you know, is working together worth it? And I said maybe for the micro mini Swift drivers, but that's about it. If you have a teammate you can work together with, then by all means, that is for sure the strategy to go with here. So for Marcelo Flores, for Hudson Howard, these two right now have, I would almost say, a slight advantage over the rest of the grid at the moment right now. Marcelo Flores, what a year, what a start to the year that the number 2 machines had.
Yeah, definitely a really good start for Marcelo. And again, he started to come into his own last year, and I feel like this year even more. Let's talk about other drivers. Lennox Lockhart, one of the ones who's, you know, names we've talked about a lot to start this year. He's been taking the fight to Marcelo. The two of them went at it all almost preseason long at Orlando, and we'll see what Lennox can do. The lone Sodi machine, I believe. Well, not the lone Sodi machine in the Microsoft class, but on his own out there on the racetrack. So a little bit of changes already to start this one up. Hudson Howard, top of the timing charts for a second. Goubert.
What a first lap for Bernardo Goubert. 43 flats.
Very fast.
42.8 was the best lap from happy hour. The number 10 machine was rolling all day yesterday and into today, and it is no surprise to see him at the top of the board, but a 43 flat on lap number 1 is impressive. It says 2 laps in the books. Really, the first lap you can almost write off every single time. Let's see what the third lap has in store. It looks to be an absolute flyer, and he's actually got a slight toe off of Lennox Lockhart there further back. That is the 88 machine. Or the Nitro Kart drivers there a little bit further back. That is the likes of Slate Harrell. What a run for Slate last weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Looking to do the same thing here at Daytona International Speedway. And now Hudson Howard. We saw him point Marcelo Flores by on the outlap. He wanted his toe. It's working. A 42.7. Fastest lap of the weekend for Hudson Howard.
And that's a strategy as well. They've kind of been going back and forth, right? One lap, Marcelo's out in front. The other lap, Hudson's out in front. And they're going back and forth, back and forth. So we'll see if Marcelo lets Hudson back by. Because, again, Marcelo's definitely going to want that toe, especially as this session continues to go on. We'll see. Hudson's definitely very close on this main straightaway. One more lap for these two drivers. 4th lap in the books. Hudson doesn't improve, but a 43.1.
They both ran the exact same lap last time around.
Identical. And again, Hudson just needs to be careful with how close he gets to the rear bumper of Marcelo. You saw him back off there, which is key, right? You need to give yourself that room, but this being the last lap, I really think he's going to run out of time. And in that lap, again, he's a 10th clear of his teammate in Marcelo Flores, so that could put him in a good spot. Alvaro Medeiros, though, a really good lap. Hudson still a 10th clear, though.
Well, Marcelo here is either on an absolute flyer or Hudson made a slight mistake here because he's pulled away from the 49 machine here. Your checkered flag's going to be waving in the air for our Micro Swift drivers. Does anybody improve? No improvements for Hudson Howard or Marcelo Flores. Further back, we have the likes of Alvaro Medeiros going to cross the stripe. Does not improve for Orslan. He does. 42.674 for Orslan, and we can hear him outside of our RV here, Caleb.
There you go.
The Orslan crew. Fabio's going crazy behind us, Caleb.
What a lap there. The Orslan crew definitely going to be happy with that one. You can hear it from outside of our announcer booth here, Alex. What a session there. Alvaro Medeiros, you talked about the lap Hudson Howard put in. That was a flyer. But this kid, impressive lap by the kid from Brazil. And Orslan going to be happy with that one. And I know Fabio is. What a start to the weekend for the 15 car. Puts it on the pole position here. Hudson Howard across the line 2nd.
Jay Howard.
Talk about Jay Howard. Goodness gracious. What a start for that team. Simone, Flores, Stoppel, Lockhart, back to Slate Harrow, Goubert, Enzo Ramos, and Grayson Powers, your top 10 to start this one off. Man, oh man, Alex, we're in for, I think, a really good race here.
What a lap for Alvaro Medeiros. He was quick in the happy hour, but that was out of nowhere. What a flyer there. A couple drivers resetting fastest laps of the weekend here in this Micro Swift class. And again, super good job by the entire Orslan crew and for Medeiros there to put it on pole, and for Jay Howard to go 2, 3, 4, and 5 to start the heat races there. Lennox goes P6 at the end of it all. Slate Harrell, Bernardo Goubert, Enzo Ramos, Grayson Powers, your top 10, less than half a second, separating 1 through 10. And I want to highlight really quickly here, Leo Simone and Marcelo Flores ran the exact same lap time down to the thousandths. But Leo Simone ran his lap before Marcelo Flores did, and so that's why Leo is 3rd, Marcelo's 4th.
Exactly that. So these drivers, helmets off, into the scales. Gonna get weighed up and ready. That's it for them until tomorrow. And tomorrow, again, you have the warm-up session that's free to view for everybody at home. And then for the rest of the day, heat races and main event's going to be behind the paywall for our KC Premium members only. I know we just recently made a commercial about it as well, so we'll let you guys watch that later on in our slots. But $9.99 a month. Become a KC Premium member today. Click the join button on our channel and watch all the racing action live. And you know, this track, it's definitely not one that you're going to want to miss whenever we do get into it, Alex.
Yeah, the racing action should be really good. I mean, I did not get a chance to come down here for Kart Week, but this is my first time in person seeing the repave. I think it's going to race really well. What I've heard from a lot of the drivers, the ones that did participate in Kart Week, they said it raced good, right, for how narrow the track is and for how much grip that's being put down. It is already naturally on the racetrack with the Rhino liner, so the races will be good. The classes have been incredibly close, as we have come to expect here at the United States Pro Kart Series. And again, it's a racetrack to where I will say this much. We talk about how in qualifying you don't really need a drafting partner, although Hudson Howard and Marcelo Flores worked beautifully together, put themselves on the 2nd and 4th respectively out on the grid for the Micro Swift class. But it's a racetrack to where if you're fast, you can't pull away, unlike other racetracks like a Newcastle, maybe even like in Orlando, you can argue. And then, you know, when we ever go to Homestead and other racetracks like that with long straightaways that constantly, no matter how quick you are, it is tough to pull away. A track like Daytona, there's really 2 straightaways that are medium length, right? There's not really a straightaway till you can get to the top rev range of the engine, no matter what package you're running. And so if you're fast, you're fast. You can actually pull away. And a lot of drivers like that. They like to be able to put the cards on their table, right? And really, leave it up to them to go out there and pull away.
Talk about the tracks on the schedule. We start here at the Daytona International Speedway. You move on to Trackhouse Motorplex. Again, one of the staples of American karting, Trackhouse Motorplex. And you go on to the Wisconsin Grand Prix at Road America. We're back at the Briggs and Stratton Motorplex, June 27th and 29th. And then we ended off at the Indiana Grand Prix at Newcastle Motorsports Park, August 15th and 17th. 4 rounds this year at the United States Pro Kart Series, and we're in for a really good year. 4 tracks that race unbelievably. I mean, to be back in Wisconsin, I've never been to Road America. That's an exciting one. To see the racing action that the Carolina Grand Prix delivers year after year, that's an exciting one as well. And then the Indiana Grand Prix, I mean, what a race, what a track, what a facility as well, right? So we're excited to go back there. But on the track now, your KA Juniors, C, B, and A. 3 groups, 3 splits in this one. Group C out on the racetrack now.
Group C out on the racetrack. I'm curious to see if any driver from Happy Hour that we could expect to see maybe towards the pointy end of the field slipped their way into group number, or letter C. So looking at the top of the board here, the 868 on this first lap, Connor Corsi goes to the top of the board at 43.414. We can expect to see lap times a lot quicker than that as they get on to lap number 2 and beyond here. So lap number 2 is underway. Thomas Anthony goes to the top of 41.450. Arthur Barb, Connor Corsi, Meyer Lewis, Grayson Knoll, your top 5, but obviously that is going to change as they get their 5 laps in the books. 2 laps in, it's still Thomas Anthony at the top of the board, with more and more drivers are going across the stripe here.
Talk about a couple of names in this one. Benja Fernandez, the rookie, who just moved up to junior as of today. Missed practice yesterday, had school, so he's here. Today's been the first time he's been on the racetrack, and again, a lot of people have had a lot of practice sessions. You heard from Martin Stone in the Masters class. You have 9 practice sessions to get up to speed, and for the majority of drivers who have been here for the 2 days, I mean, that gives you enough time. But for the drivers who are still in school, we talked to Colin Lloyd on this week's episode of KC Grid Talk, Alex. He missed Thursday as well, and that puts you a little bit behind, especially at a racetrack that I think is very important to learn early on in the weekend. So for Benja, again, just getting up to speed here. Currently 7th on your timing charts for SLA, and we'll see, right? Well, how Benja comes along.
Yeah, for a driver like Benja who has never been to this racetrack in general, to miss practice, so then you have to show up. You have a couple practices today, and you got to go out there for Happy Hour. It's tough. He's a rookie as of this weekend, making his debut on the national scene for the KA side of things. He's not new to the class, though. I know he's been doing a lot of driving last year. I saw him over at the AMR Motorplex for a lot of the club races. As Benja goes a little bit sideways there and mows the lawn and puts some grass onto the racetrack, exiting turn number 10. So that's going to ruin, the end of this lap, maybe the start of this next one as well. So for Benja Fernandez, I'm going to guess that 5th is the best he's going to do here in this group. I'd be surprised if he improves in his lap time with all the dirt on his tires. But speaking of dirt, now that's going to put dirt on everybody's tires as they go around turn number 10 for the next lap here. But for Benja, he's not new to the engine package, not new to the class. He's been doing it all throughout last year, doing some testing. Did a couple of club races, so he knows what it's like to manhandle and wheel one of these full-size chassis, but it's still new whenever you actually go out there and really make your debut on the national scene. And it's always tough whenever you go out there and throw a lot more drivers in the mix than you would at a club race.
I think kid handle is probably a better word there to use. Benja's still one of the smaller drivers in this field. Checkered flag in the air, though. Thomas Anthony, quickest so far for the AMAX team of 41.207. You go back to Arthur Barbie in second. The 830 Lucas Drivey, my mistake. In third, Meyer Lewis. Benja Fernandez, your top 5 in Group C of KA100 Junior qualifying. Thank you for the correction there, Alex. My mistake. I believe Lucas out of Homestead as well.
Out of AMR Motorplex, a driver that I actually have been fortunate enough to coach throughout all of the last 2 years there with the Rise Racing crew, and then
there you go.
Lucas working with SLA Karting here this weekend in the KA Junior side of things. He's had a really good progression throughout this year. It's his debut on the junior side of karting, right? So a driver that I remember speaking to him at the Cruiser Winter Series round number 1 and 2, and you know, he was in the B main, and then rounds 3 and 4, he was able to make it into the A main, and he was super pumped about it, right? And so this is a driver that's just working on his craft, working on the progression. He was super quick in Mini whenever we went to SSKC and went over to the club races last year at AMR Motorflex, but now making his debut this year in the junior side of things, constantly improving. 3rd here in the first of 3 groups. I'll be curious to see where that slots him in line once all the drivers hit the racetrack, but a driver that's made a lot of improvement. And again, Jeremy Fletcher under the tent for SLA Karting, a really good coach. So again, listen to him and get faster, right? That's the name of the game for those SLA Karting drivers, and especially for Lucas. And looking further down, Benja Fernandez, another SLA driver, right? Super Nats winner last year, but anytime you make the jump to a new class, especially from a cadet to the full-size chassis, it can be a little daunting, a little bit tough to make that progression happen fast.
Also, I feel like a steep learning curve, right? I mean, this is your first race on the national circuit. To learn, to get yourself up to speed, what it's like to go wheel to wheel on a much wider chassis is definitely, I think, one of the biggest things to learn, especially moving up from the cadet categories, right? You're dealing with something new, a whole new beast, as some may say. But look at the scenes from the World Center of Racing, and a couple of moments, your B group getting set to hit the racetrack here. Group, and now the B group hitting the racetrack. Thomas Anthony, lap time to beat at 41.207. And again, the star power in this field, you talk about the junior class and the drivers that continue to improve, continue to get themselves into the seat. I am expecting to see a lot of drivers kind of have breakout weekends this year. Talk about Forrest Adams on his return to the national circuit this year. We'll see what Forrest can do on the BJRLN kart here to start off the year. So work our way through, follow around with Forrest Adams for the first couple of laps here, as he's going to take the green flag. And again, still tire warm-up going on for Forrest. Saw him have a little bit of a, I should say, a swerve on the straightaway to get more heat into them. And I talked about it, right, Alex? You exit the grid, a long strip of dirt, a long strip of rocks that you kind of get. You need to get your tires up to temperature. You need to get them clean and able to set in a good lap as this qualifying session progresses.
Yeah, but again, usually the first lap, the first 2 laps are kind of throwaway laps, so that's why you see Forrest Adams not really too upset to go out there and kind of burn the first lap, even the first 2 laps. You really want to find yourself with good track position, like Forrest does, like Cole Medeiros does, right behind him, and like the 814, one of the AKT drivers there as well. And
Kellen Berghofer.
Again, Cole Medeiros already P2 there. On the RPG Cosmic, we saw him having some pretty good success over in Orlando with the Rotax series, racing for REM at the time, put it on pole for rounds 3 and 4 there of the Rotax Winter Trophy. Now here for the first round of the United States Pro Kart Series with Ralston Performance Group Cosmic. putting a pretty solid lap together on lap number 2. Nobody quicker than Ruben Gutierrez on the 893 machine, a 40.922, the first driver to be in the 42nd bracket here in this qualifying session. Lap times will continue to fall as the session progresses and as the final group, Group A, heads out on the racetrack in about 3 laps time, when Group B is off the racetrack. 8:44, Grayson Walcott on your screen right now. He's had an up and down year, a lot of bad luck for the Paralympic driver. I mean, I know I get a chance to speak with his dad, Nick, all the time on the grid. I actually coached Grayson two years ago at the Scusa Pro Tour. Got Grayson actually his first podium over on the mini-sport side of things.
Who haven't you coached, man? Goodness gracious.
So, look, Grayson Walcott's a really good kid, really good driver. I hope, for his sake, they can get some luck together. I mean, I don't think he actually finished a pre-final at the Scusa Winter Series in Orlando. So, looking for more luck than anything this weekend here for the first round of USPKS.
Yeah, lap times continue to drop here, and you talked about Wolcott, a couple of others who are in this field. It looks like Jaramillo, if I'm not mistaken, looks to be the driver on the U-Race machine. And that Tony Kart just right behind the Super Tune Paralympic. We'll see, that's the 882, and I think it indeed may be Jaramillo. I'm going to have to, yeah, and it is. So I know what I'm doing sometimes, so good to see Jaramillo out there on the racetrack. Towing around with another driver, but
this would be a good lap for Mark too.
It's very critical, and it looks like this lap is going to be good. We're getting close to the closing stages here. 4 laps, and
tire.
That's exactly what can happen, especially at this racetrack, right? You talk about the last corner being critical. That's what you're expecting to see a lot of, especially in that qualifying session. He had a really good lap up until turn 11, and again, that's a make-or-break corner, I feel like. Ruben Gutierrez, though, still quickest here of the session, a 40.725, set on his 5th lap. Talon Laney for BJR, back to Forrest Adams. Caleb Tarter 4th. Martin Jaramillo, P5. You go back to Emerson Lane, Valentino Santiane, Indy Anderson, Comaderos, Berghofer 10th. Nathan Golseth 11. Talked to his mechanic, Shaston Johnson, and they were just struggling. Don't know what they're missing, but again, you talk about where Nate was last year, qualifying on the front row at USPKS, at the Ohio Grand Prix at MCC. That's there's definitely something amiss there, or something they haven't figured out yet under that Arcane Motorsports.
Well, anytime at a track like Daytona, especially
it's
now
different.
With high grip, a lot of corners in quick succession, usually if you're struggling for pace, it's because you're probably too stuck to the racetrack more often than not. And so I think that's what I noticed with the brief airtime we gave Golseth there during that qualifying session. I was watching this go-kart and it looked stuck to the ground. It looked like it was, I don't want to say hopping, but again, you hit those Rhino liner patches and some drivers can roll through it, some drivers hit it, and all of a sudden the steering wheel is kind of bouncing out of your hand, and that's how you know the go-kart's got a little bit too much grip in the rear. And so for a lot of these drivers, no matter what class you're in, you're always chasing the rear at a track like this and just making sure that you can keep it ahead of the curve. The final group, Group A, heading out onto the racetrack for our KA junior drivers. These were the fastest 15 from the happy hour session about an hour and a half ago. That's the 8:51 on your screen. Theo Salamau, he's been a driver to watch throughout the start of this year, and even from last year, but into this year, he's had I'd say a breakout 2 months for the Orsalong crew. He's a driver that has a chance to put this thing on pole position when these 5 laps are said and done.
And again, for Theo, already kind of looking here from our booth, a very aggressive approach to some of these corners, and I feel like that's kind of what you need, especially in turn number 1. You need to have a sharp entry, a very aggressive approach in a 1, as well as some of these other corners. You need to attack the racetrack, it almost seems like here, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is him trying to get, heat in the fronts, right? I mean, you're always trying to chase like I mentioned, you're chasing the rear. You're making sure the rear stays ahead of the racetrack, but you want to have some front-end grip as well, because corners like this, turns 9 and 10, a really fast but tricky left-right chicane. It's tough if you have a lot of understeer, so you want to make sure that you have heat in the fronts when you get your second lap underway. I count lap 2 of qualifying as lap 1, right? And there's the 865. That's Brady Shad off the racetrack. Not a great start to lap number 3 for him, but he's been a driver that has been very impressive. He was quick last weekend at CKNA, And I got to say, this weekend,
a win for him as well last week.
Exactly. He's got a chance this weekend, though, to go out there and make it a back-to-back here in the KA class now.
Back-to-back super speedways as well. That could be a good showing for Brady Shad. Talk about movers in this field. Nathan Dupuis over from Sodi to the Nash Motorsports team this year, and as well for Isaac Malquit, who was over with Burrell and moved over to Mike Doty Racing back on the OTK package. But this one just about to heat up. We're getting set to start lap number 4, so we're getting there. We're just at crunch time. Salamao sets in a burner for Orsilon at 40.220. You see the shuffling. How about Julian Rivera up to second, Vanchev to third, Malquit to Travis Pettit, your top 5. And this field is definitely going to change.
What an afternoon this could be for Fabio and the Orsilon crew right now. If they can hold on to this one. Got the pole earlier on in micro. Now they have a chance to go out there and put it on pole in the KA junior side of things as well. This could be a really amazing afternoon for that crew.
You talk about junior, the driver to chase so far this year, Alexander Vanchev. Definitely been one of the veterans in this junior field, and he's had a lot of pace to start it off in this lap. Looks really strong for Alexander Vanchev. What does it look like on the timing pylon? He does. Fifth, Salamao improves just a little bit. Isaac Malquit up to second. Edward Kennedy's up to 8th inside of the top 10. And here comes Fer Nunez. The Orsilon team definitely rolling here in qualifying, Alex.
Let's see, we're still following Alexander Vanchev. Now we're back to Salamao here. What an impressive run for him. He's been doing it without any help from behind or in front. Final lap, checkered flag in the air. Does he improve on his personal best? He doesn't. So the group behind him can knock him off of pole position. Brady Shad goes to P6. Pettit hopping in the seat. It gets him to 5th. Further back, not a whole lot of shuffling for position lap time-wise. Malquit crosses the stripe. No improvement for him. Further back, Rivera doesn't improve. Dupuis doesn't improve. Vanchev yet to cross the line. I wonder if he finished his lap or not. If he didn't, the best the RPG driver is going to do is P6. I want to say, I hear the Orsilon crew celebrating behind us. That's our cue. Theo Salamao, pole in KA Junior.
How about that for Fabio? A great start to the Friday, and I should say a great end to Friday. A great start to the official sessions. How about that? Theo Salamao, the second Brazilian for Orsilon on the pole position, starting on the front row on the inside. Orsilon definitely going to be happy with that one. That kid set in a burner on lap number 4, a 40.156, a hundredth of a second quicker than Isaac Malquit.
Yeah, further back, Rivera, Dupuis, Pettit, a 10th and a half, your top 5, 3/10, your top 10. Further back, it was Vanchev, Shad, Fernunez, Drew Jensen, Darren Kidd, Edward Kennedy, Marco Samet, Tyrone Kemper Jr., Tristan Murphy, and Nico Katowski. Your top 15 drivers on your screen, and gridded up are the KA seniors, and just like KA juniors, 3 groups, Group C, Group B, Group A. Group C is the first group out there. A couple big names that we see. Colin Lloyd on the Grid Talk podcast earlier on this week. New team recently announced, Sodi Racing by Velocity Racing. So that's his first real weekend racing the chassis there for Colin Lloyd. You see Anthony Rivera a little bit further back on that next row as well. So some big names here in the first of 3 groups for KA Senior.
First of 3 groups, and again, we had a great conversation with Colin Lloyd this past Tuesday. The KC Grid Talk podcast is on our official YouTube channel. Go check out some of the clips that we posted on social media as well this week, talking about what Colin has done, and especially racing with type 1 diabetes, and how that's been a challenge for him, and how he's learned to push through. And again, for that kid to be up where he is after all he's been through, and the work him and his dad have the years as well over at Homestead, is a good showing. That's Jeremiah Thomas, unfortunately, with some issues. He found himself, I believe, way down the order. Couldn't even set in a lap, but it's all about Orsilon so far to start this one out, and they're happy. But again, go check out the podcast. I believe episode number 45 that was with Colin Lloyd and Phil Pignataro. He's actually out and about in the paddock here working with Brody Stoffel, a Microswift driver. So go check that out. All episodes with various different guests that we've had on. We're almost at episode number 50. It's crazy to think about, but you'll give it a watch, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy the conversation we have. work to do for Colin. Finds himself in the C group, so that's going to be a tall order to get himself up the field. And again, growing pains on a new chassis, learning it and getting himself into the groove this weekend, I think is definitely been one of the things for him to learn as well as this year goes on.
Remember, he also missed practice.
Yeah.
He's one of the drivers that had to go to school. School is still a thing.
And I heard he got 100 on that test that he had to take on the Thursday. So he got 100 on the test.
Round of applause for Colin.
Hey, there you go. There you go. If you guys watch our podcast, round of applause is something that we do. And round of applause for Colin Lloyd. 100 on his test. Very studious guy, right? School comes first. Racing comes second. I've heard it's just a hobby. So there you go. Right? We'll see, but you're watching Kart Chasers live action from the World Center of Racing. We'll be right back with KA100 Senior Qualifying. We talked about Colin Lloyd and his move to Saudi Racing USA by Velocity Racing this year, and this is the first time we're going to get a good look at that Saudi chassis and that T1D driver, Colin Lloyd, and what he can do here. And again, a tall order for Colin, to be said here, Alex, but we'll see what he can do, especially in these opening laps to start off this qualifying session. Not going to be relevant on lap number 1. And again, we talked about tire warm-up, what it takes it to get yourself into that window. So we'll see how Colin gets along as the session goes on out.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see the pace of a couple drivers in the session in particular. Colin Lloyd being one of them. I'd even put, I'd say Adam Maxwell is a driver I can expect to be pretty quick in this one. And then further down the order, you got the likes of Tony Rivera, who is in this group as well. So a pretty strong group. Charles Ropke as well for the likes of Hopes PD, coached by Caleb Gafera. That's a driver that we can expect to see be pretty quick as well. So this is a strong Group C here for the KA senior crew, and now we are 2 laps in, so we can start to see some, baseline laps, we said. Probably no record-setting laps on lap 2, but again, just a lap that you can be happy with if the rest of the session were to go not according to plan. Sebastian Venegas, your top driver right now, 40.6. Tony Rivera, P2 at the moment. Luca Reyna, Colin Lloyd, Cole Wilson, your top 5. Colin Lloyd is about 4/10 right now to get up to what the top drivers are doing here in the first of 3 groups.
Looking back to the conversation we had with Colin on Tuesday, Alex, he was talking about how aggressive he had to drive the chassis and how stiff it was around AMR.
Riley?
Chassis to chassis, but he said it's been the exact opposite. He's had to find himself driving that kart a lot more smoothly this weekend compared to the aggressiveness he had out at Homestead when he was testing the chassis. So this weekend, you're going to find some big swings, and he's going to have to try new things that he hasn't tried before. And he's up to 3rd right now on his 3rd lap, so we're about to get into crunch time, right, for all these drivers. We're on lap number 4, working our way down, going around with Hamza Ambar, one of the rookies in this class, moving up from junior last year. So we'll see what he can do as well in this session for the Arcane Motorsports Group. He finds himself a little bit down the order as well, so we'll see. But Anthony Rivera,
he's got a bit of a nose cone issue there. Yeah. Does. The front fairing, it's fine for now, but it's a little bit loose. It's not actually connected, I'd say, or at least tightly to the front fairing.
You can see it just kind of moving around there. Again,
hopefully it stays on.
At a track where you find more, more aero being, aero wash or whatever being important, I really don't think this is one of those, and I think Hamza will be okay as the session goes on, but continue to follow through. We'll see what he can do this time around. Lap number 5 into the books for most of these drivers, so checker flag in the air. Rivera the quickest in this group, a 40.455, back to Venegas, Colin Lloyd, Wilson, to Reyna, to Adam Maxwell, Martinez, Wyatt Lyle, Mass to Charles Roki, your top 10 so far. So a good start to the session for a couple of these drivers. And again, getting yourself, I think, even further down, maybe a 40.3 is going to be key here. But that's a really big swing compared to what we saw earlier on. There's a big difference here, about 7/10 between what you see in Rivera back to about the midfield in this group with Mass into the 41s.
The quickest lap we saw in Happy Hour is from Christian Miles at a 40.1. So if the micro and junior field in particular is anything to go off of, the lap times in qualifying right now have been roughly 1/10 to 2/10 quicker at the peak compared to what we did in Happy Hour. So if that rule still applies for KA Senior, we can expect maybe some 39s here. I'll be curious to see what these drivers in Group B and Group A get down to, but the lap time that they are all chasing is Tony Rivera, a 40.455. Hey, Riley.
machine there that's rolling out onto the track. Alan Isambard, you look back a year ago to how he started the year off here at the United States Pro Kart Series with a win in Houston, to being in the B group here this weekend. That shows you the competitiveness of this field.
Gabriel's in this group. That's a driver that's had a lot of success throughout the year.
Jose Carlos Hernandez as well in there.
So for Nick to be in this group, Jose Carlos Hernandez to be in this group, Colin Roos to be in this group. There's a lot of really good drivers that are in the second of 3 groups. You can argue there's drivers in this group that if they put the lap together could put it on pole from group number 2. Do not be surprised at all if that's what we see here. But again, first lap is underway. This is pretty much just a tire warming lap, but for Colin Roos, it's going to be a lap of getting the dirt off your tires now because he drops it on the exit of 11 there. And you don't want to do that because, for one, puts dirt in your tires, and 2, you start to lose ground to 2 of the fastest drivers on the racetrack right now in Isambard and Jose Carlos Hernandez. And anytime you can be behind those 2 and get a tow, get a feel for where maybe you're missing compared to those top 2, that is going to be key. This is the start of lap number 2, so this is going to be the first real lap that means something here in this qualifying session. We'll get a pretty good baseline for where these drivers stack up compared to the first group. It's got a pretty solid couple of corners for Jose Carlos Hernandez on this second lap here. Ooh. Drops a bit of a tire there, won't cost you too much of anything. It actually makes the track wider for yourself, and it puts a P4 for him. And like I mentioned, Mick Gabriel, a driver that's had a lot of success here throughout the years, puts a P1 on his first lap. I suspect will be a couple tenths quicker than that as this session goes on. But for Mick, the AEM karting group driver there, it's top of the board right now in this second group and absolutely rolling. And he's actually going to catch up to the bumper of Colin Roos here in a moment. And if he can time it right, could get a bit of what we call a lazy tow down this back straightaway. And with a good enough run out of the final corner, turn number 11, might get a big tow towards the start-finish line here. This might be a monster lap for Mick Gabriel. Isambard tops the board. I think it'll be eclipsed here from Mick. It's not. He goes quicker, but not faster than Isambard for Rocket Racing Company there. So a 40.221 now on lap number 3 is the fastest lap we have seen so far in qualifying.
And these two out in front, Jose Carlos Hernandez and Alan Isambard, to me it seems like Jose's in a really good position here to like you said, right, try and get a lazy tow off of Alan. And for Alan, he's in clean air. He's in a position to really put himself in and continue to go out there and set in clean laps with an open racetrack. But you see how busy his hands are in that last corner compared to what you saw with Jose Carlos earlier on in the session. Very smooth and very, very minimal inputs out of the Orsalon machine.
Yeah, well, Mick Gabriel tops the board now to 40.138. That's what I expected last time around, but tire getting up the temperature there, getting in that window that he likes it, gets around Colin Roos. I'll be curious to see if that costs him any lap time, but if he's timed it right, he might have not lost too much ground and maybe gotten a bit of draft to start this final lap here. So Colin Roos, if anything, is going to get a chance to get a tow off of the fastest driver on the racetrack. Further up the road, Isambard and Carlos Hernandez, the first 2 drivers to cross the stripe to finish their final lap of qualifying. Checkers out, Mick Gabriel bails early. What does it look like? Top of the board, a 40 flat for Rocket Racing Company there, and Alan Isambard, he goes to P1. Mick Gabriel didn't finish his final lap. Hernandez goes to 3rd, Roos 4th. Tony Rivera from the first group holds on to 5th. Shea Aldrich, Venegas there in 8th as Shane Reddy for BJR from outside the top 10 to 4th on his final lap there. Quentin Angeli 9th, and Wyatt Downing your top 10 for Speed Concepts Racing. But what a lap there for Alan Isambard. A 40 flat is a 10th quicker than what we saw in Happy Hour. I mentioned it from Micro and Junior, a 10th and a half quicker in their respective qualifying sessions compared to Happy Hour. So I'll be curious to see how that 40 flat holds as the fast group heads out onto the racetrack.
And you talked about Mick Gabriel as well. He made a pass at the start of his 5th lap, which was, again, the fastest lap for some of these drivers. You look at Jose Carlos, lap 3, Alan Isambard.
That's why he bailed out of the lap.
And exactly, that's that just shows maturity from Milk. But, yeah, I mean, again, just bringing it into the pits. The A group getting set to hit the racetrack, the fastest of the KA100 senior field. Christian Miles, Paulie Massimino going to lead him out after this quick commercial break.
You need it, we got it. At Kart Kart Eat Parts, we are your complete online aftermarket kart part superstore. From chains to bearings to bumpers and components, we've got it in stock and ready to ship straight to your door from our base in Ontario, Canada. Check us out online at karteparts.ca.
Paulie Massimino wins in KA. Paulie Massimino is a winner in OKN Stars.
Take your driving to the next level with one-on-one coaching from 2024 OKN Stars champion Paulie Massimino. Kart rental options are available if you'd like to keep yours at home, and drivers in all classes are welcome, from Briggs 206 to Mini to KA100 and X30. With in-depth data analysis, onboard video footage review, and lead follow on-track sessions, each private coaching session will see you end as a more complete driver than when you started. Book your coaching session now.
Brandon, why are there all these charges for just over $200 from Acceleration Kart Racing's website?
That's because AKR gives you free shipping on orders of $200 or more within the continental US.
Okay, but I thought you were just getting a pair of gloves. That's what, 70 bucks?
But if I'm getting a new pair of gloves, I might as well get a new pair of shoes to match. And then on top of that, I'll get a neck brace because with the shipping, it's basically free.
Yeah, I do not think the math checks out on that.
Everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free for orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Spend responsibly. Shop AKR.com.
A group already setting in their first lap, and a little bit of shuffling throughout this field. Looks like Frankie Mossman able to get ahead of Paulie. Looks like Blake Nash as well able to get ahead of him. So Paulie going to be in fourth now on the racetrack. Ty Fisher just right behind him. And again, finding good space. It looks like Christian Miles with the best space was with TB Kart last year. Back over to Mike Doty Racing to start his 2025 campaign here at the United States Pro Kart Series. And clean track for Christian. First relative lap getting set to go underway. And we'll see what he has in store. And again, dancing that fine line off the racetrack. Nothing yet from Christian, and it comes in the fourth. More shuffling. Brandon Lemke, your top five.
Go pretty quick. Gafera, the fastest driver on lap number 2 of this group for Hotes DD on debut for that team, goes to P4, 10th and a half back from what Isambard did. Look at this group. Blake Nash, Mossman, Massimino, Ty Fisher. Fisher's in a really good spot here, getting a toe off of 2 of the fastest drivers in the country.
What a lap there by Brandon Lemke to put it on the pole. Christian Miles, Caleb G, Enzo, Vidmontien, and more. That top 5, top 10, I should say here, Alex. Very, very competitive. And it shows you Pauly down in 9th. Alan Isambard from the B group to hold on to a top 10. Man, what a way to get this qualifying session started for one of the biggest fields here this weekend. 52 drivers total. But Brandon Lemke, new year, new team, same OTK chassis that he's so familiar with, but puts it on top of everybody else here.
Yeah, what a run for the rookies too, right? Vidmontien, Sebastian Garzone, 4th and 5th. Ty Fisher down there in 8th, but ran the same lap time actually as Frankie Mossman there, but Mossman did it before Ty Fisher, so puts him 7th. 2/10, a little bit over 2/10 separates your top 10 drivers there. That's more like it for the KA senior crew. That's what we expect for these guys and girls here in this class. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the most stacked KA senior fields I've seen in quite some time, and it will definitely put on a show for us come heat racing time tomorrow. Looking ahead at the schedule, we have Mini Swift up next. 2 groups, Group B and Group A, and then it's up to our X30 Juniors, KA Masters, and X30 Pro Seniors to round out our qualifying.
Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR, with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today. DPK Americas is bridging the gap between the U.S. and the 2-time world champion DPK Alonso Kart factory team in Europe.
In partnership with Team Binnick, they offer drivers a complete career path from the Americas to Europe that allows them to continue their driver development on both sides of the world, all underneath the DPK umbrella.
For more information, contact DPK Americas at max@drivensm.com to take the next step in your driver development journey today.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here. For more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
K1 Circuit, the world's greatest outdoor karting facility, is now open. Open karting and rental session schedules are available online. Rentals will resume today after the race event at 5 p.m. Thanks to Kart Chaser for live streaming the event at K1 Circuit, your coverage will resume shortly.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I want to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
It's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
But you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
Out on the racetrack now for your Mini Swift class. Rolling around with William Vitor. And I believe we're split up in this one. Two groups, B and A, getting set to put themselves in a good starting spot for tomorrow. And Alex, you've already talked about it, this weekend. This, I feel like, is the most critical qualifying sessions all year long.
Yeah, I mean, for me, out of the racetracks that we've been to so far this year, this is the one where I would argue that qualifying is a must to get right. Whereas, tracks like Orlando and others where, you can afford to have a bad qualifying. There's a lot of passing opportunities, pretty wide racetrack, and, the race tends to come towards you. Whereas Daytona, I have seen many times around this place where, side-by-side racing action happens, and all of a sudden you lose a second or two to the guys in front of you, and they pull away, making a really small group of leaders, if not just one go-kart. I've seen many times drivers like Brandon Charles-Crack pull away from a field during WK Kart Week. So, again, it makes life difficult no matter what track you're at if you qualify poorly. But if you can get qualifying to work your way here at Daytona, it can make your weekend a lot better than it would if you don't. So, nonetheless, 2 laps in, we're on lap number 3, and Oscar Gus Wanderlei, the driver they're all chasing on the 139 machine, Flynn Fallon, Thomas Montalvo, Camila Canache, William Vitor, your top 5 drivers, a 42.746, the fastest time so far.
Oscar dropping a tire into the dirt, and that's going to, bottleneck William. That's going to bottleneck as well the driver just right behind him as William goes off the racetrack. That's a big off. And you see how dirty those tires are now. You see the dirt that he kind of picked up. This next lap is obviously going to be a burner, but getting yourself in a good position and getting those tires in a good window to start your 5th and final lap is going to be critical now for William Vitor, who finds himself down in 10th. And you talk about the pace that kid's had to start the year, to talk about him going over to the grand finals last year out in Sarno. We weren't expecting to see him in this group, to say the least here, Al, but this 5th lap is going to be very critical for William. And as well for Oscar, who now falls down to 3rd. Camila Canache up in top of the timing charts, a 42.581. And these 2 drivers on your screen, important for them that they don't fight all too much here out, because this last lap of qualifying is critical, right?
Yeah, with these 2 on our screen, Gus Wanderlei and Montalvo working very well together. No surprise to see them towards the front of qualifying here. Montalvo hasn't been able to really put a lap together, but I think this one's going to look pretty good for the 117 machine here as they round turn to number 11 here. The Bennick is going to cross the stripe first. Oscar Gus Wanderlei sits 3rd at the moment. What does this lap have in store? Checker flags out. Final lap for all these young stars. No improvement for Gus. Montalvo improves to 5th. Further back, Colton Bruck goes to the top 3. A few other drivers are starting to improve on their laps. Vitor sets a personal best to stay 2nd, but at least create a bigger buffer to the drivers behind him than what it was. Camila Canache does not improve on her lap, but a 42.581. It's a flyer here in this Mini Swift class. So the 126 of Camila Canache, the driver that Group A is all having to chase. Looking at Happy Hour here, Enzo Di Janeiro went quickest with a 42.117. 4/10 slower. Canache went then De Janeiro during happy hour. And again, every session so far in qualifying has been at least a 1/10.5 faster in qualifying than what they went in happy hour. Let's see if that trend continues. Let's see how long Camila Canache can hold on to her pole position when the next 15 drivers hit the racetrack.
Full discretion, what I'm about to say is definitely very corny, so to those of you at home, we talk about lazy toes, we talk about getting a good toe. Important that you don't stub your toe while you're out there, right? Very important. You see what I did there, though? Hey, that was a good one. I've been holding that one in the chamber all day. I had to get it out, right? So it's important you don't stub your toe, quote unquote, while you're out there in the qualifying session. So we'll see. And again, a lot of these drivers, all about getting yourself in good track position. Enzo De Janeiro going to lead the field out, I believe, alongside him. Looked like Jaden Francisco for the Ryan Perry Motorsports camp. And then on the Nitro Kart with Ryan Perry under Ryan Perry this weekend as well. Like Parker Ives coming off a big win at the Charlotte Motor Speedway last week. So we'll see how Parker comes along here, as well as a couple of others. I believe Myers, the driver in the Timmy Tech Comkart right behind him. Holden Myers. And a couple of more getting set to hit the racetrack here. But
well, Timmy Tech and Comkart have a pretty good crew here this weekend, no matter what class you're in. But you look at Holden Myers there on the 136. We also have the likes of Kate Wolf here on the Comkart. A couple of really strong drivers here this weekend for Timmy Tech. They're all chasing. Camila Canache at a 42.581. They're heading onto the racetrack now. There's Lawrence Fairman. There's Maxwell Macha. And others as they head onto the racetrack. It's all headed by the 130 of Enzo De Janeiro, and smartly lets the 130 of Jaden Francisco through. And then you see De Janeiro all of a sudden put his foot to the floor on that right pedal and try to chase after Jaden. So Jaden, open to leading this group out to the first lap. Enzo realizes he has been the fastest driver throughout the day, especially in happy hour. He does not want to be the one that they are all getting the toe off of. He'd rather be the one that is chasing other drivers and get that slight advantage over if you were leading a group of drivers.
The same thing for the microsifts, right? The driver out in head, the pole sitter for that class, just put himself out in the front of the field and got himself in good room, right? So you don't want to get yourself too close like Parker Ives and Enzo are right now, where you just want that little bit of breathing room, right? You want to be able to stretch your legs and to hit your marks as comfortably as possible. But whenever Enzo's ahead of you and if you're Parker, you're kind of lifting off a little bit in some of the corners where you're behind, and now Parker's able to get through. So it just seems like could be I don't know if it's a tire warmth issue for Enzo early on.
I think it's tire pressures. Just tire pressures. I mean, we're still a lap and a half in to a 5-lap qualifying. If you're Enzo De Janeiro, you got the pace here. You just got to let the tires come into play and just see if it comes to them. Nonetheless, 2 laps in now. Let's see. We're going to start to see some changes up at the front. Jaden Francisco, 42.327, puts 2.5 tenths on the field. Cade Wolf responds, goes to P2. There goes Macha to 4th. Vitor and Canache still hold on their lap times. Paxton Romero on the Bennick goes to P6. Holden Myers goes to 8th on his second lap. So we're starting to see a lot of shuffling for position. And now again, look at this. De Janeiro on his 3rd lap looks a lot racier than he did on the first 2 laps, and he's actually got a bit of an advantage, I'd say, over Parker Ives. He has a toe on the Nitro Kart machine. So let's see, rounding turn number 11. I suspect a flyer from these 2 drivers. What does it look like? Ives crosses the line. P2 goes down to 3rd as De Janeiro goes to 2nd. Myers to 4th. Paxton Romero on the Bennick goes to the top, and Ives lets De Janeiro through. So what that does is burn this lap for Ives in the hopes that 5th and final lap is a flyer. It basically unleashes the shackles on that Paralyn for De Janeiro to see what he can do.
And that's a lot of pressure as well for that 5th and final lap for Parker Ives to set in a flyer, right? That's a lot of pressure to get it done on your last time around. Here's Holden Myers on your screen. He finds himself in 6th at the moment. How about Liam Nachawati for Jay Howard Driver Development on the pole position on lap number 3 of 41.819 for Nachawati. Top of the timing charts. De Janeiro up to 2nd for a second. Holden Myers goes up to 2nd. And again, we're starting the last lap here. Orioli down in 5th. Paxton Romero to Macha to Ives. Wolf and Manalio, your top 10.
Wow, there's the 155 of Paxton Romero. He was on pole on lap number 2, down in 6th right now at the moment. There's the 191 of Jake Manalio following Cade Wolf. They're 9th and 10th respectively. Romero this time around has a really good toe on Holden Myers. Myers sits P2 right now at the moment. Do not be surprised if Paxton Romero tops the board or at least improves in his lap time for this 5th and final lap. They're getting ready to cross the stripe now. De Janeiro, Francisco already have. They don't improve. Orioli and Paxton Romero also do not improve on their best lap. Here's a look at Liam Nashawati. I got to say, I think he can pretty much breathe a sigh of relief because the rest of the field have already completed their lap. This is basically just a consolation prize. Doesn't improve. Liam Nashawati on pole here in Mini Swift.
What a lap by Liam to get it done, and his last lap was about 3/10 off of his purple lap time, but for Liam, again, leg room. Be able to stretch his legs and to set that lap was key. Gets it done for Jay Howard Driver Development. Holden Myers to De Janeiro, Jaden Francisco, and Santiago Orioli. Your top 5. Paxton Romero in 6th, Maxwell Macha to Parker Ives, Jake Manalio, and Cade Wolf. Your top 10. 11th to Lawrence Perriman, Cam Johnson in 12th. For the Franklin Motorsports team, Mauro Nario, Nico Salazar, and Luca Becquerel. Your top 15 drivers. And again, we talk about the pace that a lot of these drivers that find themselves in the second page here. Alex, William Vitor, definitely not what we expected here in qualifying. Going to start 17th, but more qualifying action get set to come your way. X30 Jr coming up next on the other side of this quick commercial break.
Are you looking for an advantage in your competition? Well, Car Class has done the hard work for you. We've traveled to your racetracks to give you the inside knowledge. So what does Car Class offer? We've got drone footage that captures the racing lines, visual markers for your braking points, acceleration zones, and the best overtake opportunities on your racetrack. Pedal cam to show you where to brake and when to accelerate, and 360-degree footage to make sure you don't miss any parts on the racetrack. We've covered 13 racetracks in the United States, and Australia, you're up next. So visit carclass.com to get your track information.
Brandon, why are there all these
right,
charges
stop.
for just over $200?
I'm tired of all this branding business, okay? Branding this, branding that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200? We know, okay? Take a walk with me. At Shop AKR, they have everything you need to start racing at a very cheap and affordable price. They have MXC rims, they got chains, electrical stands, tilt seats, they got MXCs. And if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental US over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
All the way. Qualifying underway here for your X30 Juniors, presented by Speed Concepts Racing. Only one lap down. The start of lap number 2 here. Ethan Skymaniachich, quickest. Arthur Barb back to Aquila's Sipirko. Sorry if I said that wrong there. William Kim in 4th. Hector Iturriaga. Back to Alexander Savage, Nico Katowski, Isaac Nolan, Murphy Mackinnon, and Jeremiah Thomas. The 11 drivers in this first group, it seems like they've been split up here as well in qualifying. So 2 groups in this qualifying session. So Tristan Murphy currently out ahead. Nico Katowski is just right behind him. And we'll see what kind of laps they can set here, Alex.
Lap 2 in the books for Ethan Sky. He goes out there and resets a personal best and tops the board a 40 flat Arthur Barbie, Hector Turiaga, Achilles Superco, Isaac Nowlin, your top 5 drivers. These lap times will continue to tumble as this session goes on. Nico Katowski has a rear bumper full of the 726 of Arthur Barbie. Let's see what this lap looks like for Barbie. It's an improvement, but no one quicker than Manuchich right now, a 39.767 down into the 39-second bracket. We'll need a little bit more out of the RRC machine there if you want to go out there and put pole. I think we'll be in the low 39s once the second group goes out there for X30 Jr.
And again, only that was on lap number 3 there for Ethan Sky Manuchich, that 39.767. So when you look at, Vanchev and the names that are getting set to hit the racetrack, you got to expect them to be quick, and that's probably what you're going to end up seeing. That's a 799 there of Hector Turiaga. First weekend with the Rawson Performance Group, moving over from Nash, making his debut for the team in pink and blue this weekend, and third so far for Hector. For the back, Tristan Murphy to be 4th in this class. That shows you how difficult this racetrack has been. Nico Katowski slowing throughout the double rights there. I think resetting his track position here as well. So getting himself an open room, but with the final lap well underway, Ethan Sky still holds on for Rocket Racing Company, Alex.
Oh, here we go. Checkered flag is waving for our X30 juniors. What does the final lap look like for Ethan Sky?
Oh.
I saw him punching the throttle there. Got on the gas a little bit too early. Got a boatload of understeer on the middle of the corner. I don't think it's an improvement on his lap time, and it is not. 39.7 is going to be the best that he can do. It's going to be the fastest in this group, but a 39.3 was what we saw in Happy Hour from Alexander Vanchev. So I suspect the lap times will be quicker than that for group number 2. But Manuchich right now, top of the board. Arthur Barbie, Hector Turiaga, Tristan Murphy, Achilles Superco, your top 5 drivers in group number 1. 2 groups. They're split up here for our X30 juniors.
Yeah, good show nonetheless for Manuchich. We'll see where he stacks up against the rest of the field. And you still have the likes of Vanchev, the likes of Cole Medeiros, Nathan Dupuis on the Nash Motorsports team this weekend, Theo Salamao, Sarah Bradley, who was pretty quick in her Happy Hour session, Ashton Woon as well. For his second race in the X30 package and with Speed Concepts Racing, I would say he's definitely coming in his own, and this track seems to suit a driver of his stature as well this weekend. Being around the 4 foot range, Alex. He's definitely.
You would know.
I would. You would as well, right? So, so he finds himself. I think within a good shot to put himself up the order. This track definitely, I feel like, is one that's going to suit him. And then you look at the taller drivers, in this field, like your Dupuis. We'd expect to see them struggle a little bit, but Dupuis has been very quick in both classes. So we'll see how it stacks up. Vanchev, the driver who everybody in the X30 Junior field has chased so far to start off the year. He's definitely been quick, and he leads this field out onto the racetrack.
Yeah, he's found a home there with Rawson Performance Group. He has been the lead driver for that team in the X30 Junior side of things, and like you mentioned, really the driver that everybody on that X30 Junior package, really in Junior as a whole, KA or X30, doesn't matter. He has been the driver everyone's chasing. Lap number 1, I guess you could say kind of in the books, but just getting started for Alexander Vanchev. This is the first baseline lap that these drivers are going to put down just to go out there and at least get a lap together. There's Ashton Woon under Speed Concepts Racing there on the Carlos Sainz machine. Basically an OTK for Ashton Woon. He was incredibly quick during the practices today and into the Happy Hour session. He's the one right behind Alexander Vanchev there on the 795 machine. Let's see if he can get a little bit of a lazy toad on his back straightaway. I think he's slightly too far to really get too much of an advantage. Further back, Theo Salamao. Can he go 2-4-2 on the day in junior polls?
You look back at the end of last year with Orsolon, with Garzone and what he did at the Super Nationals. This would be a great start, right? Could this be their next rising star in the junior categories? Salamao is definitely off to a good start here this year, and this qualifying session is looking pretty good for Salamao. He set in already a good little margin to start this one off, and again, lap 3, lap 4, and lap 5 are really the money laps. Talk about Edward Kennedy as well on the energy machine. He's been strong. Jaramillo always strong. Benham Abernathy as well. So everybody's going to continue to improve, and seeing these drivers come into their own, like your Kennedys out of Canada, with a driver like Caden McQueen, to have those tips, to have that coaching as well is going to be good. But Salamau, top of the timing charts for Orsil, and Ashton Woon second, Vanchev third. That was lap number 3. Last 2 laps getting set to go underway. There's Theo Salamau for the Orsil Racing Machine. This young Brazilian has been on a tear so far today here, Alex.
Theo Salamau has figured it out. I mean, he has been, like I mentioned earlier, this has been a breakout year for the Orsilon driver. He's been super quick. He was fast down at Orlando Kart Center. But here for the first round of the United States Pro Kart Series, if he can put it on pole here in X30 Jr., I cannot think of a better way to start your weekend. Drops a slight tire there. Shouldn't affect him too much lap time-wise. What does it look like? It's quickest for Vanchev. Salamau does not improve. A slight mistake there in that final corner cost him a bit of lap time. But for Alexander Vanchev, his go-kart looks hooked up when it matters most. For Ashton Woon, I got to say, he looks decently quick. I don't think Vanchev has left him too much here in this qualifying session. Let's see what the final lap looks like for the Speed Concepts Racing driver. But for Vanchev to go quickest on lap number 4, it means maybe lap number 5 might be the money lap for 7:06. Rounding turn number 11, hands look smooth, kart looks good, cross the stripe. Does he improve? He does. A 38.982. Wow. Woon improves as well to go to P2. Theo Salamau improves, stays third. Sarah Bradley, Nate Dupuis, your top 5.
What a lap by Alexander Vanchev to put 2.5 tenths, almost 2 tenths realistically, on the field. Shows you how strong that driver and team combination has been in 2025. A 38.982. I think that's the first driver to dip down into the 38s this weekend. It's one thing to go lap over 1 lap. To go fast over 1 lap. It's a whole different thing to keep all these hungry junior drivers behind you when we get down to racing action.
Well, I got to say real quick for Vanchev, he had a 39.3 in happy hour, 38.9 in qualifying. Either way, both times he topped the board. So he was fastest in a 12-minute session, and he was fastest in a 5-lap session. And that go-kart is hooked up.
And you see the progression of the racetrack as well, right? It continues to get faster and faster session after session. Vanchev and RPG staying ahead of the curve, and putting it at the top. Ashton Woon to Salamau, Sarah Bradley, Nathan Dupuis, Edward Kennedy, Shermer in 7th, Cole Medeiros, Suraval, and Ethan Sky Maniachich, your top 10. Only a couple of more classes getting set to hit the racetrack. KA Masters, X30 Pro Senior, and at the end of the day, for those of you here at the paddock, the cookout, the race weekend cookout at 5:53, sponsored by Varas Racing Truck. Go ahead, get some picanha as well. That's always very, very delicious. So
I'm
make
hungry
sure,
just thinking about it.
For those of you in the paddock, go out and get yourself some food before you head on back to the hotels and work your way out of the Daytona International Speedway. And for those of you at home, if you want some good food on Fridays at a racing series, USPKS, in my opinion, does a really good job of it week after week to provide for their customers. That's always a great environment, a good event for all the racers and teams to get together and eat some good food at the end of the day. But that's still in 2 sessions time. Masters out on the racetrack now, and this field, we talk about the competitiveness. This one's been pretty strong as well. Martin Stone has been strong. Yetter David as well in the 425 Orsilon machine has been pretty strong. And Scott Falcone has had a pretty good year over at the Challenge of the Americas over on the West Coast side of things. Had a good showing out in Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. He was over at K1 Circuit this past weekend. And I believe a couple of good results for Scott Falcone. And this weekend, right, looking to pick up right where he left off over there in the West Coast, coming all the way down south and on the East Coast, quote-unquote, you can say, here in Florida. And we'll see how Scott Falcone does, but Yetter David, a good start so far.
Yeah, well, speaking of Martin Stone this morning, this was the name that he threw out. Yetter David is the driver that everybody is chasing. Martin Stone's been fast this weekend, but this has been the driver that has had this racetrack figured out a little bit quicker and faster than everybody else. So now, 1 lap in the books. This is going to be the first real lap that actually matters here, and it's for the Orsilon driver. Rounding turn number 11, what does the first real flyer look like for Yetter David? Playing with the track limits there on the exit. That's the fast line from what I've seen from a lot of the drivers, is just dipping that left rear slightly off the racetrack there. And no surprise to see Yetter David top of the board. Martin Stone needs 3.5 tenths to challenge the Orsalon driver as it stands. Scott Falcone. And then you look back to Randy Klimek and Brant Estes. And now it's Paul Montopoli rounding out your top 5 drivers.
I'll tell you what, Alex, Martin Stone's 401 machine looks pretty good throughout some of the corners. The biggest difference that I think I'm seeing here, looks like Yetter David is just that little bit more aggressive on the brakes, especially in heavy braking zones like turn number 11. You can hear the tires screeching as well from our camera there. He just seems that little bit more aggressive, just sending in a little bit deeper into some of those corners, it seems like, Alex.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing there on the first couple of laps through turn number 1, but there's so many different approaches that you can take to a track like Daytona. I mean, Martin Stone now closing that gap quite a bit, less than a tenth, or just over a tenth, sorry, to Yetter David. And so Yetter David his driving style has always been very aggressive into a corner, right? Late braking, get the rear end to slide around, use it to rotate, where Martin Stone has one of the smoothest set of hands that I've seen on the grid in general, right? His hands are never moving. The steering wheel is always basically pointed straight. That go-kart is on an absolute rail no matter where the 401 machine goes. And as they round the corner to complete lap number 4, let's see what Scott Falcone has in store. Look at that. He's got the Mark Steele approach to the straightaways.
Good old brake suck, but that lockup there not going to help him out too much. One driver off the racetrack was like the 413 or the 412. Not sure if that was Simon Ellick or somebody else that went off the racetrack there.
412 there.
So indeed the 412, but we follow on with Scott Falcone. It seems like this lap is going to be that good on his final one. Yetter David still top of the timing charts here on the provisional pole position. Martin Stone in second, Falcone in third, and again, he just seems like he's sliding a little bit too much throughout some of those corners, so I'm not sure if he's going to improve. Yetter David, though, looks like he just had a flyer. This one looks good for Renato. This time across the line, does he improve? And he doesn't. A 40.975. Looks like the benchmark for the rest of the field. Nobody gonna top the Orsalon driver. What a start for Fabio. What a start for the Tony Kart machines. Just right behind us here, Alex. Renato Yetter David on the pole position in KA Masters.
Yeah, good run for Orsalon. A 1 and a 3. Orsalon's had a fantastic day, no matter what class they've been a part of. And for Renato Yetter David, that's the driver that the rest of the KA Masters group has to chase. One more qualifying session left on the day, and it's our X30 Pro Senior drivers.
And again, for those of you here in and around the paddock, one more session getting set to go green, but the cookout still later tonight at 5:53, sponsored by Vara's Racing Truck. You don't want to miss any of the food action that's going to go live tonight. So for those of you in the paddock, again, work your way over to Vara's at the back of the pits near row number 1, so around where you guys came in. So go and get the food at the cookout, enjoy it. Great environment as always here at USPKS on a Friday night.
As you can. That line builds up.
As soon as your driver gets off the racetrack, you better run, not walk. You better run out there. And I know if you get out of line to go to the restroom, I don't want to see any cutting either. You know, I don't want to see any cutting in line. The spot saving stuff and all that stuff's got to end for those of you in the paddock. I'm tired of seeing it, right? You got a good spot in line. Somebody else looks to do the undercut on you or the overcut, whatever you want to call it. That I think grinds my gears a little bit, Alex.
Listen, all right. I can't say that I have not been guilty of the good old line cut, all right?
I have as well. Doesn't mean it's right.
But nonetheless, I mean, Vara's, it doesn't get much better than what they provide food-wise.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll throw down, man, if somebody tries to come in line. Not really. That's obviously all jokes aside, but I mean, it gets quite aggressive there sometimes. I'll tell you what, Alex.
I know. I think we gave Norbert some love.
Dude,
that
was one of the ones where we interviewed him in line, and then everybody passed him, and Ryan was like, "Are we serious, guys? Like, I lost my spot." Luckily, they let Mr. 8-time at the time get back in a line and come back in. But that was a funny little incident there.
Speaking of Norberg,
hey, speaking of Norberg, you talk about X30, Mr. X30, Mr. 125 cc himself. Getting set to hit the racetrack. 2 groups, I believe, as well for your X30 Pros. So Ryan going to come out in the second group here in a couple of moments. Outlaps underway here in X30 Pro. Only half of our field out on the racetrack, and that 315 machine, it's been quite some time, we must say, Alex, since we've seen Ryan Roffa in that full tilt racing, Mike Doty racing machine. And again, just life kind of getting in the way of racing, right? It's been quite some time since he's been in the seat, period, and this weekend he's just kind of getting back into the groove. You had the chance to actually speak with him as well earlier on in the weekend, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, his last race, we didn't get a chance to see him, obviously, but was at this racetrack, WKA Kart Week, back in December. But like you mentioned, he's a busy guy, real estate for his day job, selling houses. Very important. So going out there and doing his thing and then coming to the racetrack whenever he can. We know we can expect to see him usually doing a full star season over on the OKN side of things. Spoke to him, asking him, are we going to expect to see him on a full USPKS season? That's the goal, hopefully. But it's cool to see him at the racetrack for one, and two, running double duty, X30 Pro and KA Senior. The first of two X30 Pro groups out on the racetrack. And this is lap number 2 now of our qualifying session. This will be the first real lap here that we can see what these drivers have in store for us. Rahim Alabai tops the board, a 40 flat to round out lap number 2.
And I want to take a close look at Rahim Alabai's front fairing as well. If you guys could notice, Rahim's a very tall driver. The 369 off the racetrack, that's Alex Feldstein with issues for this qualifying session, and
this is a nightmare scenario for any driver, especially around this racetrack. We spoke about it all morning during the happy hour sessions, Caleb. This is one of the racetracks that you can't afford to have an issue like this rolling off on the back of the grid on the racetrack that seemingly is very difficult to overtake on.
Yeah.
That's going to create a very rough Saturday for Alex Feldstein.
Yeah, unfortunate start to the day there for Feldstein. A couple of more drivers out there. Michael Boyazis, looks like Levi Sangera as well in that energy machine. Boyazis in the J. Howard Driver Development. Kart Republic, and they're working their way through. Alabai still tops the timing charts, and like I was saying, they actually have that front fairing carved out just a little bit so Rahim's feet aren't touching the fairing whenever he's driving because of how tall he is, and again, that comes with, you know, finding new ways and alternatives to have him fit in the go-kart, and you see how that front fairing is just that little bit carved out and how his feet kind of stick out just a little bit on the backside of that front bumper just to make room for this driver who's pretty tall. And again, he's not a slow driver. He's had really, really good pace in times that we have seen him race in X30 Pro. But again, this racetrack, to his physical style and to his body type, being a taller driver with the Rhino liner and the Rhino patch here, it's definitely not going to suit him all too well.
Well, last lap of the books here for Rahim Alabai. Has a really good toe on the 335 of Christian Blevins. Do we see an improvement on Rahim's lap? No. Blevins improves to P2. Rafa does not improve. Levi Singera does. Goes to P2 here in the first of two groups. Further back, what a lap for Brooke Shambo on the BJR MDR LN go-kart there to go to P6 in her respective group.
Yeah, you go back to Boyadzis as well, putting it third. Blevins to Ryan Rafa, Brooke Shambo, Christopher Giram, Mingnan Zhu, and Alex Feldstein. Unfortunate DNF. And that's going to put him last throughout the heat races. But I spoke too soon there. Alibi, a good qualifying showing here in his group. But again, still have a lot of hungry drivers. And the class of the drivers that are about to hit the racetrack, Mossman, Norberg, Kolar, Massimino, Davin Roberts has been impressive for a rookie. Finnegan, Bailiff, Lorenko to Andreados, McQueen, and Quentin McPherson. This field that's about to hit the racetrack, they've definitely shown some pace. But Frankie Mossman going to lead this field out. Only 5 laps compared to the 15 that he had in the happy hour session. So we'll see if he can get himself up to speed in a very short time. And again, I can't talk enough about this kid that's currently third on the racetrack. Davin Roberts, very, very impressive. And I said, right, you don't have some of the big names here this weekend, but it gives the opportunity for the names like Davin Roberts and a couple of others to burst out onto the scene and to make a name for themselves here at the opening round of the United States Pro Kart Series.
Yeah, I mean, I know you and I spoke to Davin this morning and asked him, you know, so you run an X30 Senior? He was like, yeah, debut, and we both looked at each other and said, you know what? He's got a really good shot at winning this thing this weekend. I mean, we know he's a phenomenal driver in the junior side of things. On his debut, to go out there and really take it to the senior guys. I mean, you mentioned this. Maybe there's not a lot of the big names that we can come to expect, but there is literally one of the, if not the winningest American X30 drivers ever. Mr. Nine Time, Ryan Norberg's here. Frankie Mossman running double duty. We know how good he is. So there's still some top-notch level senior drivers here this weekend. And Davin Roberts is taking it to those two and more. He has a chance to go out there and bring Ryan Perry a pole here in X30, the only X30 driver this weekend underneath the RPM tent. Lap 1 is done. They're about to finish lap number 2. This is the first real lap that matters for these X30 Pro drivers. Let's see what it looks like. Norberg crosses the line. What does it boast there? P2, a 39.2. The fastest lap we saw in happy hour was a 38.7. So I can expect at least a 38.5 probably is going to be good enough for pole, the way that these laps have been tumbling down from happy hour to Qualy.
Yeah, definitely. And for Alibi to hold on, he looks set to finish, I think, within a good qualifying position. Frankie Mossman as well. It's been a little bit of a slower start compared to the start Ryan Norberg has had so far. This is lap number 3 for Frankie, and this is the one where we're expecting to start to see those laps start to kind of come down here for the J. Howard development driver. What does Frankie have in store on lap number 3? Up to third there, but half a second.
This is really interesting. This is the first time that I have seen so far during qualifying, and now the laps have finally starting to tumble down for the rest of the group, but a lot of drivers either maybe missed tire pressures or struggling here in this second group to go quicker. Norberg went quicker, Massimino went quicker. Raheem Alibai's 39.1 is holding right now for P3. This is lap number 4 for all of these X30 pros. Let's see if the lap times will continue to fall. It looks good for Massimino through the left-right chicane, getting held up slightly by Quentin McPherson there, who sits in 5th. Let's see if Paulie has timed it well enough to get a decent toe to start his final lap. Norberg goes a 38.497. Massimino improves again to stay second. Mossman third, McPherson 4th. Bailiff goes to 5th as Paulie makes a move into 4, and that's probably going to ruin both of their laps here.
Yeah, Paulie's this lap is definitely not going to be good enough. I don't think having to make a pass that time around. Frankie, this is the last time for Frankie Mossman, though. What does he have in store? He finds himself in third. Can he take 9-time U.S. national champion off the front row? And he can't. Ryan Norberg across the line now. Doesn't improve, but holds on to the provisional pole position. Roberts only 6th. Kolar's up to the top 5. McPherson up to 4th. And nobody improves on that final lap. Ryan Norberg, a good qualifying session for him. Lorenko inside of the top 10. Man, what a session. McQueen down in 9th. Wow.
Yeah, I was about to mention, that's probably the biggest shock to me is Caden McQueen struggling to either get those tires in a window that he likes or just struggling with the setup. Nonetheless, P9 is the best that the Energy Corsa driver can do, and it's 7/10 off of Norberg's lap at a 38.497, the best lap we've seen out of the X30 Pros all weekend long. Massimino, Mossman, Macpherson, Kolar, then it's the rookie, Roberts, Finn Bailiff on his return to X30 Pro, Raheem Alibi, McQueen, Lorenko, your top 10 drivers, but it's Mr. 9-time that has them all at least behind him for now.
Yeah, what a qualifying session there, and for a late entry, you know, we didn't see Ryan hit the entry list until I believe late last night or early this morning, where there were still questions floating around the paddock whether he was going to race. And I'm sure for everybody in the field, we're definitely going to want to race him, but also kind of, you know, grinning their teeth a little bit when they did see he did enter. And he does what he does, a 10th clear on the field. Paulie Massimino going to start alongside him on the front row. Alex Feldstein, to me, the biggest story in this qualifying session. And we'll see if we can get a word with him as well later on tonight, Alex. That's it for the on-track action cookout, the United States Pro Kart Series cookout. Going green, going hot here in a couple of minutes at 5:53 minutes. Head over there to the back of the pits for those of you here in the paddock and get that cookout sponsored by Vara's Racing Truck. From us, that's it for the Friday action. The Daytona Super Grand Prix at the World Center of Racing, sponsored by the Ryan Perry Motorsports Group, Parolin USA, and AMAX Racing. That's it for the Friday action here, Alex. To summarize it real quick, what are we expecting to see tomorrow?
Aggressive racing. If practice and quality is anything to go off of, I mean, this track is tight. It's not too difficult, I don't think, to actually get around. I mean, I spoke to Overbeck, and he said, listen, I mean, the track's tight, but you can make moves anywhere possible as long as you force your way in. And so I think for drivers like an Alex Feldstein, like a couple other drivers that had issues in qualifying, maybe didn't get a lap that they really were happy with, they're going to be aggressive to put their way at least closer to the front come Sunday's main events. Dirty racetrack probably tomorrow because a lot of drivers are going to be hitting the dirt if I had to predict anything there. But nonetheless, I expect some very close racing.
Well, that's it here for Friday. We go live bright and early tomorrow at 8 a.m. And we go racing in the Sunshine State, the home of America's great race. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. From myself, Caleb Vieska, and from Alexander Searle, have a good night. Enjoy the cookout for those of you in the paddock, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.